My mom has secretly been ruining all my relationships my entire life. And even though I only figured it out recently, I am utterly destroyed by this information and I seriously just don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, the only show where your mom actually can betray you in like the worst way possible. Because holy crap, this first story is like a doozy. The mom is just going out of her way to destroy every single relationship the original poster has. And it gives off the vibe of like a true crime situation where it's like, dude, this has been going on the whole time? Like, what's going on, man? So subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already, click the bell to turn on notifications, snuggle into your favorite blanket, have a seat, and let's get started. Okay, for starters, I'm a 26-year-old female, and I still live close to home because my parents are older and I help them out a lot. Me and my mom have always been super close, honestly, maybe even like a bit too close. Like basically, she was my best friend growing up. She always used to say stuff like, oh, men leave eventually, but family stays. And I never thought much about it before. But now, considering the circumstances, it sounds kind of weird when you think about it. I've had 3 serious relationships and all of them ended almost the same way. The guy would slowly start acting distant, get annoyed over little things, say I was too emotionally attached or stressful to deal with, and then would finally break up with me. And honestly, I blame myself for a long time because I know I can get attached kind of hard. My mom was also always the one comforting me after every breakup too, saying that I deserve better and all this other stuff. But my last boyfriend, who I will call Aaron, was different though. We dated almost 2 years and we're talking about moving in together eventually. My mom acted supportive, but she would say little things sometimes like, oh, don't move too far away. Men change once they get comfortable. And it was like small comments, but it was enough to stick in your head. But then suddenly Aaron started acting weird too. He would randomly ask if I was upset with him when I wasn't. Or he'd say stuff like, why did you tell your family all this negative stuff about me? And I gotta be honest, I genuinely had no idea what he was talking about. Well, it turns out my mom had been texting and calling him sometimes just to check in. At first he thought it was sweet because my family is really friendly in general, but then she slowly started telling him things like I wasn't fully happy, that I thought he was immature sometimes, that I complained he lacked ambition, that I felt trapped in the relationship, but it's like none of that was true at all. The creepiest part is that she kept telling him not to mention their conversations to me because she said, oh, I didn't want to stir up any drama. When he finally showed me the text messages, I actually felt sick reading them because the way she wrote everything sounded so believable. Like if I was him, I probably would have believed her too. I then confronted her and she just immediately started crying, like full breakdown crying. She kept saying that she was just trying to protect me because men always eventually leave. Then she said, I just don't want to end up alone. And I don't know why, but that part really messed me up the most. After that, I reached out to one of my exes and after an awkward conversation, he admitted that she used to message him too. Like we're talking the same exact thing. Little comments here and there, slowly putting ideas in his head over time. Nothing dramatic enough where someone would instantly realize what was happening, but just enough to slowly ruin the relationship. I still talk to my mom and everything, but now I feel weird all the time around her. And the worst part is that she actually is a good mom in a lot of ways. She sacrificed a lot for me growing up, supported me through everything, always cared about me, etc. But now, every time I think about crying to her after my breakups, I keep wondering if she secretly helped cause them in the first place. Oh my god, yeah, your mom absolutely caused every single one of those breakups, dude. She's crazy. That is unbelievably toxic. Look, I understand if you love your mom and you're like, oh man, the way she cried when she's like, I don't want to end up alone. Man, that really moved me. Like, okay, I can get kind of some of that. But you know how like a toddler will break down when they know they're in trouble and they'll start crying just to like, I don't know, make you forget about all the crappy things they did? This is what's happening. Your mom is the crying toddler trying to get her way. Her saying, oh, I just don't want to end up alone, while also like destroying all of your relationships. That's not her not wanting to end up alone. That's her clearly saying, I'd rather you end up alone. Like, what is going on right now? That is so unbelievably horrible. Like, you're way better than I am because if my mom did that, dude, I probably would cut her out of my life in a very serious way. We're talking like low to no contact. There's no way I want to be around someone like that because think about it. She's going behind your back. She is literally scheming and plotting your downfall. Like, why would you want to be around someone like that? So hopefully the original poster is like having some serious distance between her and her mom, and they have some kind of like, I don't know, safety net or some way of getting away from that woman. Oh, and also, hey, I don't know, maybe don't introduce any future boyfriends to her. She will absolutely do the same thing again. Like, she does not want you to be happy at all. And I think knowing that moving forward will probably help dictate pretty much every decision you make with that woman, because what you described sounds crazy from the outside looking in. Nothing about this was normal, and all of it was completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Today, I messed up by using Facebook to try and find someone to mow my lawn, which eventually introduced me to a neighbor who had probably the most entitled attitude I've ever seen in my life, which eventually led to this lady humiliating me on Facebook. Here's what happened. For a bit of reference, I live in a suburban neighborhood. My lawn is quite small and I hurt my back last month, so I can't really do it myself right now. So I posted in our local neighborhood Facebook group saying that I needed some help. I pretty much wrote that I'm looking for someone reliable to mow my lawn every 2 weeks. $20 cash each time. I provide the mower and the gas. Must be at least 14 years of age or older and able to do a decent job. Well, a mom who I've met once at a block party messages me privately. She says to me, "Hi, my son is 13 years old and wants to earn some money. He can start this weekend, but can you pay him $25 instead though? He's saving for a new video game. Also, since you have the nice mower, can he use it for our lawn too when he's done with yours? We don't really have one right now. And maybe throw in a couple of bottles of Gatorade. It's gonna be really hot." I then told her that $20 was what I offered, and that no, I'm not going to provide drinks, and of course, he cannot use my mower for other properties. She then replied back and said, "Well, that's kind of cheap. Other people around here pay like $40. My son is doing you a favor because you're injured. The least you could do is be more generous. He's a good kid, and this would really help us out. Also, can you show him how to edge the lawn the first time? I don't want him messing it up." And with this second message, I just said no thanks and that I will find someone else. Well, she then responded in the group chat and said, "Some people in this neighborhood expect teenagers to work for pennies. Offering $20 for a huge yard and then refusing to help at all? It is so disappointing. We're all struggling with inflation, but apparently not everybody has the same problems." Which honestly was incredibly rude and very entitled, especially when she leaves out so many details, which paints me as a bad guy even though I really don't think that I was. Yeah, I really hate Facebook. Can I just say that first and foremost? Like, it is a nightmare. Because guess what? It is full of boomers like this entitled Karen in the story. Like, seriously, I don't think I would go to Facebook for probably anything if my life depended on it. It's just to go on there to be like, "Hey, I'm still alive, family and friends." And then I like run away because half these people are just weird and I don't want to deal with them. So honestly, I'm not surprised that someone crawled out of the woodworks and said, "Pay my son more. Also, we're gonna take your lawnmower. You're okay with that, right?" And it's like, dude, I hate people like that. You literally are trying to find someone to hire and like bring them on board, and instead of just going along with it, they add a bunch of other crap on there and make these weird demands. Like, dude, you are in no position to negotiate with me. These are the terms. Either agree to it or get out. I'm not paying you more, and no, you can't take my lawnmower. So yeah, if anything, I hope this is a lesson that no, you shouldn't do anything like business related on Facebook, because 9 times out of 10, and yes, I made that statistic up, that is absolutely what you're gonna get, and it's just gonna be miserable. Am I the jerk for not letting my girlfriend track my location 24/7? As I truly believe it's just really weird and comes off as really creepy. Because at this point, she's upset with me, as she feels that I should let her do this despite the fact that I just don't want to. And now this is causing some really unnecessary drama, and I just don't know what to do with this. Here's what's going on. Okay, so to put this simply, my friends and I all do shift work. I'm a nurse, and the other guys are mechanics, electricians, accountants, engineers, firefighters, etc. And it's those kind of jobs where if you get a field position, you can work multiple like 14 to 16 hour days and then take the rest of the week off. Or you're working like a 3 on and 4 off kind of schedule, or even the inverse of that. So everybody hangs out on the weekend since none of us have kids, yet we still get together and travel. We take weekend trips to different states, we go camping, hiking, we're partying, or we go globe hopping. We've been to Mexico, Canada, several countries in South America, even going as far as Ireland, the United Kingdom, and Spain, using basically whatever flights we can get that are dirt cheap that week. I got a passport at 18, and we've been doing this kind of thing together since we were in university. Now, my girlfriend has a sales job, so she travels quite a bit for work, and recently she started asking me to share my location with her, and I'm sure you might be familiar with some of like the phone applications, and she wanted me to do this 24/7. Now, when she asked me this, I told her no, because that really made me uncomfortable to be tracked all day, every day. But I told her if she wants to text me and ask me where I am, I'll instead text her my GPS coordinates if she wants them. She then got annoyed with me about that and said that if I loved her, I would let her track me so she doesn't worry about where I am. But I just told her that sharing my location constantly kills the battery on my phone really fast. And on top of this, it's the fact that it just kind of like weirds me out to be constantly tracked, and I'm not comfortable doing that. She also kept pushing about it every time I travel with my friends, to the point that this last time when she demanded it, I told her no, and that she needs to drop it because she's being pushy and controlling, and it's making me feel like she does not respect my boundaries and even like respect me as a person. Like, it really makes me worried that she doesn't trust me as her boyfriend. She then got pissed off when I said that and tried to pick a fight, but I straight up told her that I had a plane to catch and that I would text her when I landed, and then I just left. And now I've gone to Greenland to go fly fishing with my friends for the weekend, and I've turned off my phone completely because my girlfriend keeps sending angry text messages asking me where I am every 5 minutes, and it's honestly just weirding me out. So am I really the jerk for not sharing my location with her? Because I honestly don't know what else to do here. No, I don't think you're the jerk. Like, in my opinion, if you really need to track the location of your significant other, then I don't think you have that good of a relationship in the first place. Like, think about it. If you need to know where they're at to be like, oh man, I wonder if he's cheating, then what the crap is going on in your relationship, dude? Like, I don't know. That just seems like a really weird collar to put on your partner to be like, oh yeah, I need to know exactly where you are. Otherwise, I'm not going to trust you. And that, in my opinion, is very creepy. Like, I would not like that at all, and I would also be very upset by that. So no, you're not the jerk for setting this boundary. I think tracking locations is also weird. I'm not in favor of that at all, and I personally also believe that's incredibly weird. Am I the jerk for not wanting to donate my kidney after my mom essentially volunteered me to go ahead and follow through with it? Because now my family's thanking me for something I never agreed to, and I'm honestly feeling trapped and I just don't know what to do. Okay, so my phone has been blowing up pretty much all day, and I honestly want to throw it into a lake at this point. For a bit of backstory, my stepdad needs a kidney transplant, and I ended up being a match for him. He's been in my life since I was 12, he helped pay for college, and he always treated me like his own kid. So this whole thing is making me feel awful. When I got the results, I told my mom, but I asked her, please, just don't tell the rest of the family yet, because I needed time to think about it. Surgery really scares me, and donating a kidney feels huge. I thought I'd get a few days to process it, but no, I definitely didn't. The next morning, relatives were texting me saying thank you, and they were even calling me a hero before I had even agreed to this. Then at dinner, my stepdad thanked me in front of everybody, and I just froze holding my drink because, well, what was I supposed to say there? Later on, though, I admitted I wasn't sure I could do it. And you know what? My mom completely lost it, started bringing up everything he's ever done for me. But the weird part is my stepdad himself was calmer than everyone else and said that he understood if I was scared. And now I just feel guilty and honestly trapped. So would I really be the jerk for not wanting to donate my kidney? Because this whole situation is incredibly sketchy. Okay, first off, no, you are not the jerk. Your mom volunteered you for this. Like, holy crap. You never said, yes, I'm gonna do it. You said, hey, I'm a match, but I need to think about it. Don't tell anyone about this. I'm not ready for this. But instead of listening, she went around and said, oh, our little angel's gonna save the stepdad of this family. And it's like, what are you doing? I never agreed to this, lady. What are you thinking? That's so stupid. Because even if you are a match for that, that is still a huge commitment. Like, there are so many complications that can happen from this alone, it's not even funny. So no, you do not have to do this if you don't want to. Like, he can find another match if anything, because the way your mom went about handling this was completely inappropriate and incredibly violating. Am I overreacting for ignoring a guy at work who's now started to be rude to me at work after he was flirting with me and I kind of turned him down? Because right now my work environment has become very hostile and I just don't know what to do about this. Here's what's going on. Okay, when I first met this guy at work, he would go out of his way to talk to me, compliment me, and make me feel like he was interested. He told me I was beautiful, and sometimes he would say things that crossed the line. Like, for instance, when he would talk about pictures of me naked or making other inappropriate comments. And at first, I wasn't really taking him too seriously, but then I started hearing rumors. People at work were saying that he was involved with another coworker. Every time I heard something, I backed away because I didn't want to be caught in drama or flirt with someone who had a girlfriend. When I questioned him about it, he denied everything. He insisted they weren't together and claimed they were just friends. He even told me that he was dating her, and for a while, I really believed him. We continued talking and things seemed friendly enough. Then the workplace gossip started again. Someone apparently saw us talking in a room together, and suddenly people were spreading stories that something more was going on. But instead of handling it like an adult, he got angry. He messaged me complaining that he didn't like people knowing his business. And at this point, I just blocked him, and I told him not to talk to me anymore. But rather than respecting my boundaries, he seemed determined to make me look like the bad guy. Soon I was hearing that he was telling people I wasn't his type. He said I was too big for him. He mocked me having asthma and made comments about me being unable to breathe. And yeah, the same guy who had been showering me with compliments suddenly acted as though he had never been interested at all. And now I don't even look at him at work. Like, I don't even look in his direction, and if I see him, I just walk the other way. He's in housekeeping and I am a nurse, and if he asks me a question if I have any garbage for him to take, I just completely ignore him and take the garbage to the room myself. I don't want to converse at all because I just don't want him to think that I'm open to being friendly, because I'm definitely not. After what he said, I want to act like he doesn't exist, but honestly, am I seriously overreacting here? Is this really that big of a deal, or am I maybe blowing things a little bit out of proportion? Because right now I don't know what to do. Oh my god, dude, why do people not go to human resources? Like, that is what that is there for. First off, you're definitely not overreacting. If anything, you are underreacting, dude. Like, seriously, this guy's talking about getting naked pictures of you, bro? Like, what are we doing? He's clearly creating a hostile work environment, and this is also perpetuated by him spreading rumors about you. Like, dude, get a life. And like, honestly, you did everything right aside from just going to human resources and being like, yeah, this guy's being a creep. You avoided him, you stopped talking to him, but even then, I think going to management or like anybody else and being like, this guy needs to stop, that would have been the right first move, like immediately, because this guy should be fired for the way he's acting. He's flirting with pretty much any female with a pulse around him. He's saying inappropriate comments. Like, absolutely not. This guy's gotta go. So no, you're not overreacting. You're absolutely underreacting, and I think you need to do more if you want this guy to leave you alone. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she needs to stop using her ADHD self-diagnosis as an excuse for everything that she does in her life? Because after having this thrown in my face on a daily basis, I'm seriously at the end of my rope, and I just don't know how to handle this anymore. Here's basically what's happening. Okay, for a bit of context, my friend, who I will call Mary, is 21 years old, and she's been self-diagnosing herself with ADHD for about 2 years now. I encouraged her to seek an official diagnosis because I was worried labeling herself without one could become like a self-fulfilling thing, but she just dismissed it and said that she was peer diagnosed by our friend group, which doesn't make any sense because only one person there is actually diagnosed and medicated as far as I know. Now, I'm not qualified to diagnose someone or determine whether or not someone has ADHD, but I gotta be honest, I'm becoming increasingly frustrated because she blames almost every inconvenience on her ADHD, and this is especially true around me. For example, whenever we hang out, she's usually at least an hour late, but she somehow manages to be on time for other friends. I get that time blindness exists, but if I bring it up, she says, "Oh, I can't control it. It's my ADHD." When we go out to eat, she's always on her phone instead of engaging with the friend group. And then she says that she can't concentrate because of ADHD. She constantly forgets things like her wallet unless I remind her beforehand, and then gets upset afterwards because of, "Oh, I have ADHD brain." She also frequently interrupts my conversations in the group chat to say that she doesn't get my rhetorical questions or my jokes. And then she cuts me off with, "Well, maybe it's my ADHD. Oh my god." And she does this whenever I wanted to explain myself. Whenever we went to a food place that was not her suggestion, she would also become very picky about the food and then says that she can only eat safe foods because of her ADHD, which, by the way, this was not an issue 2 years ago. Again, I'm not a professional, nor do I have ADHD, so I wouldn't really know what it would be like. It sounds like she's just a jerk, but sometimes I can't help but think that her ADHD was targeting me. I've urged her to get diagnosed, but Mary would insist it does not affect her life too much, and besides, she just happily reminds me that she was peer diagnosed, so there's no need for it. And those didn't really concern me as much until recently, when Mary was ranting to our friends about being busy all week and having lots of things on her plate that still needed to be done. Meanwhile, she continued accepting additional favors from her university peers because she just couldn't say no. So out of worry, I asked her how many hours she had slept this week and how her final studies were going. Now, maybe something in my tone was not conveyed properly, but Mary snapped at me and started screaming. She said to me, "I'm already properly planning things out. Why do you not believe me? I know I have ADHD. Stop acting like I can't do anything." And she did this in front of our whole friend group. I was really taken aback by this, and I started pointing out that she was misconstruing my words. And I wasn't implying that she couldn't do anything, but eventually the friend group came to her defense with one friend telling me to forgive Mary that she has ADHD and that maybe she just misunderstood. And you know what? At that point, I also got frustrated and said, "Well, that's not an excuse, now is it?" And then I just left. And now the group says that I'm absolutely the jerk for snapping at her. Now, I do feel bad for losing my temper, but I also feel exhausted by this whole ADHD thing being used to like explain every action she makes. So am I the jerk? Because dude, I am so frustrated. Like I just don't know what to do from here. Okay, I'm gonna say what you're trying to like dance around because dude, I get it. The original poster doesn't want to be like, oh, they're faking it or anything like that. You would never want to make that call. You're obviously trying to be considerate. But don't worry about it. I'll be inconsiderate. That lady is faking it. She doesn't have ADHD. She's using that as an excuse to be quirky. Oh, this is my personality trait. Like, dude, she's using this as an excuse for every stupid action she ever makes, and also as a way just to get attention. Like, think about it. She throws that in everybody's face anytime something happens. And it really doesn't help that the friend group is enabling this crap. Like, why is nobody calling her out on this? Like, if I was in that friend group, I would be like, okay, unless you got diagnosed by a doctor, you don't have ADHD. And yes, that really is the benchmark to know if you have this like really frustrating medical condition. And I only say that as someone who actually does have ADHD. Dude, it sucks. I can't focus on anything. It is so annoying. I literally need to take medicine so that I can focus on my work. I deal with racing thoughts and like I deal with depression. Like, dude, you do not want ADHD. It is not all like sunshine and rainbows. And it definitely should not be like some unique personality trait. Like, why would you want that? So yeah, this lady's faking it. I think you absolutely are the only sane person in that group, and everybody else is just drinking the Kool-Aid that you clearly have rejected. So no, in my opinion, you're absolutely not the jerk. A military soldier sucker punches me in the face after I get into a minor fender bender with his car. And after he drives off and nearly runs me over with his car, I decide to pursue criminal charges, forcing him to be kicked out of the United States military while also requiring him to pay me tens of thousands of dollars. Here's what happened. So I was working as a civilian for the United States military overseas, and I lived off base in an apartment complex popular among the US military. And one fateful morning, I accidentally hit another soldier's vehicle. Upon exiting the vehicle, I noticed that both of our vehicles were what you would call a hoop tie. A hoop tie is an old car that is pretty beat up that has been passed around from service to service member, and they generally sell for about $2,000. I also recognized that I was at fault for the accident, and honestly, it was a very minor accident. His rear bumper was dented in slightly, and I could hear that both of our cars were still running. I approached the driver who had already gotten out, and he was in uniform, and I apologized and said if it was all right with him, I'd like to negotiate a payment that I will pay him in cash and we don't have to involve any of the authorities. I wanted to keep this as simple as possible. I'll be honest, the accident was so minor, I honestly expected him to say, nah, it's all good. But even if he wanted some money, I'd be willing to pay him. I have always been of the opinion, if you have a fender bender and can negotiate agreeable terms between both the parties, it's best not to involve insurance or the police. But this guy told me he wanted to call the police. I said we could call the police or we could go on base together and I could give him $300 for any of the damages. But he said that wasn't enough. So I upped the offer to $500. And then he did something so unbelievable that I honestly didn't expect it. He proceeded to punch me in the face. It was a complete sucker punch and I was so caught off guard. He then got into his car and took off and in the process nearly ran me over. Now I had a black box in my car which recorded everything. I went to the marshal office on the base, which is basically the police station, and I reported the accident and the assault and showed the military police the footage. And then they used the license plate to track him down. At this point, I was also asked if I wanted to involve the local authorities and press criminal charges off base. Honestly, I felt like the soldier would learn his lesson if I let the UMCJ, which is basically the military court, completely handle this, and I decided to say not at this time. Now, the end result of the incident was that the soldier got 60 days of extra duty. He got a reduction in rank and forfeited a portion of his paycheck. And well, essentially, if he just dealt with that, this would have been the end of the whole ordeal. And honestly, at this point, I assumed our little ordeal was over, but boy, have I never been more wrong. A few days after his punishment was decided on, which was not long after the incident itself, I was in the grocery store on base shopping when the soldier who attacked me saw me and began to insult me. I told him he needed to calm down and that he should just learn his lesson, but he told me that I was a coward who didn't know how to take a good punch. But I reminded him that I held back on destroying his life, and he just told me that he's already been punished and I can't touch him again. Eventually, he just left me be. Now, a store employee witnessed the entire encounter, and I got the employee's detail and reported this interaction to his command. His commander told me he had been ordered to not interact with me, and now that he has, action action would be taken. His commander also recommended that I involve the local authorities since this soldier obviously isn't learning his lesson. So I did just that. I contacted an attorney, and the attorney at first was unsure if we would be successful in suing the soldier, and I just said he would need a cash payment to take the case. Honestly, I was mad, and I wanted to teach this guy a lesson. So eventually, I agreed to pursue this, and honestly, it was not cheap. Now, to keep this story relatively short, we ended up in a court off base. We presented our evidence. The soldier in question had decided to represent himself. Several times in the court, he had outbursts, and eventually, the judge ended up granting me a judgment of approximately $50,000 US. When the judgment was given, the soldier called the judge an awful name, and that the army would cover him for everything. So the judge decided his judgment was going to be $80,000, with the judge then asking me if I also wanted to press charges against this soldier, all in criminal court. I mean, honestly, it was obvious this guy wasn't going to learn a lesson, so I told the judge I wanted to pursue criminal charges in addition to his judgment. My lawyer later advised me that if I ever wanted to see the money, I should pursue an international hold, and with this judgment, it's likely that a judge would grant this to me. Basically, an international hold is where this soldier would not be allowed to leave the country until I was paid my $80,000. Also, he told me that according to the agreement between the US military and the host country, the US military would honor the international hold. So basically, the military would not protect him or move him out of the country to avoid punishment. And honestly, by this point, I had paid my lawyer thousands of dollars, and I honestly didn't feel like paying thousands of dollars and getting nothing for it. So I said yes, I want to move forward with the international hold. About a month later, the hold was granted, and the US military was informed of this. 2 months after the criminal case was over, the soldier was sentenced to 90 days in jail. Now, by this point, the soldier had been moved onto the base into his barracks by his commander. I remember the day I was informed. The military police handed him over to the local authorities to begin his 90-day jail sentence. Now, did I mention he still owed me $80,000? Now, I heard nothing for a year, and then one day I got a call from his commander. His commander wants me to make a statement in regards to the case. So I go in and I make the statement. During the statement, I find out the US military was in the process of chaptering the soldier out of the US military. The commander also informed me that he was close to coming up with the money to pay me so he could have the international hold lifted. The commander also asked me if my lawyer would be willing to make a statement. I contacted my lawyer, who has also made a statement about the facts of the case. A few weeks later, his ex-wife contacted me, and when this all started, I knew he was married, so I guess his wife decided to divorce him. She informed me that her ex-husband had the money and needed the details on how to pay me. I provided her the details, and a few days later, I got paid. I then told him that the money came through. She then asked me to send a receipt so he could have the international hold lifted and return to the United States. I asked her how he got the money, and she said he maxed out his credit card and also had family help him out. Also, during the conversation, I had found out the army had chartered him out of the military. I sent her the receipt, and that was the last I ever heard from his side. Now, at this point, I'm still overseas, and that guy is back in the United States. He most likely has a criminal record, which means he wouldn't even be allowed past immigration. Plus, since then, I've taken a new job, and I've definitely moved. And honestly, hopefully this guy learned his lesson that you can't just sucker punch someone and try and get away with it. Wow, that guy crossed the line. He literally punched you over a fender bender. I mean, I've heard of road rage before, but that is honestly so extreme. There's no reason to get in a fight over that. This very easily could have been fixed. It didn't need to escalate to this kind of violence. Like, seriously, that's not okay. And then he has the audacity to not only break his orders, but also insult you inside of the store. Like, come on, this guy is so childish. He should have just taken his punishment and moved on with his life. Like, seriously, he made this a bigger deal than it needed to be. So really, I don't blame you for taking the steps you needed to take. This guy was so far out of line. There was no reason for him to attack you like that, and the fact that he was making this worse for himself is literally his own fault. You tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. You tried to be the nice guy and not pursue criminal charges. But this guy seriously didn't want to learn his lesson, and he has nobody else to blame except for himself. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for firing my brother from my business after he proposed to his girlfriend at my wedding? Here's what happened. So, for a bit of background, I own a plumbing company and hired my brother 3 years ago. He was jobless after the pandemic, and I offered for him to come work for me. He was 22 years old at the time and is now looking to become a master plumber and start his own business. At my wedding, in which he was my best man, he decided that during his speech, he would give all of us a big surprise and decided to propose to his longtime girlfriend. My wife and I were appalled. We both felt like he stole the shine from our day. Everyone else in our families were so excited and kept taking pictures with her and looking at the ring, etc. So I decided to fire him the next day. He still doesn't understand why, and he claims that I'm being selfish and irrational, and our parents somehow agree. They're saying that business should be separate from our personal lives, but I just can't overlook what he did and how he ruined our day. Am I overthinking this? For clarification, he will be getting severance. He is still my brother, and I wouldn't let him lose his home over this. But as a small business, I can't imagine seeing him every day at work, especially not now at least. Fast forward, and I did reach out to him and had plans to later speak to him in person, so we will see where that goes. But in the meantime, am I the jerk for firing my brother after he proposed at my wedding? Honestly, I can kind of see both sides of this, but in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. Your stupid brother really thought it would be okay to propose to his girlfriend in the middle of your wedding? Like, are you kidding me right now? That is so inappropriate. Like, seriously, what is wrong with him? That is not okay. I know if I was in your shoes, I would be utterly furious if he did that to me. And there is no way I would take that sitting down. There's no way in the world. And I don't blame you. How could you look at him every day at work and try and go back to some normality? And the fact that your parents are not seeing why this is such a toxic thing to do is honestly baffling to me. How can they seriously be okay with this when you literally were in the middle of being married and he is intentionally trying to steal your spotlight? This is not you being selfish. This is literally your day, and you had every right to celebrate your future marriage. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation. I completely understand where you're coming from, and I don't blame you for not wanting to deal with him at your work. But the moral of this story is seriously, don't propose at another person's wedding. It's lame, it's tacky, and it's honestly incredibly disrespectful. My entitled supervisor demands that I no longer take any more overtime to fix or work on anything while at work. So I maliciously comply, and as a result, 3 separate machines that are crucial to our job shut down entirely, causing thousands of dollars in lost profit, as well as many headaches on the side of management. Here's what happened. Years ago, I used to work for a plastic injection company in my hometown. It wasn't a huge company, but they had 2 plants in my state, as well as 2 in 2 other states, and 1 in the United Kingdom and 1 in Germany. So this company really wasn't that small. It was a 24-hour production facility, which means the machines run 24/7, except from December 23rd to January 2nd. I was one of the 2 delivery drivers who moved finished products from the plant to a nearby warehouse and brought raw materials and packaging supplies back to the plant. On a good day, I'd get 4 to 5 back and forth trips done in a 12-hour day. On my last run back to the warehouse, I'd always go around to the floor people and make sure they had what they needed just to make it through the night. The driver was the only floor position that wasn't 24 hours, and I also wanted to make sure that nothing would shut down. Well, sometimes they would forget something, and after my last run, I'd always have to go back. I wasn't complaining. I would get an hour or 2 of overtime every few shifts, so everything ran fine. But one day, my supervisor pulls me aside and says I need to stop taking overtime. Now, I explain why I'm taking overtime, but he doesn't care. No more overtime ever. So I say, okay, and we just go about our day. Near the end of my shift, I'm about 15 minutes shy of being able to clock out, and I'm just finishing up packing up my truck to do the next morning run. And that's right when one of the floor people comes over and tells me he forgot something. I say to him, sorry, no can do. I'm not allowed any more overtime to go and pick up the material. Now, apparently, if I didn't do it, 3 machines would shut down overnight. Now, if any of you have worked in plastic injection, you know these machines get so hot, they melt the plastic being injected. If they have no material flowing in them, they have to get shut down or they will get too hot. It can take hours for them to cool down, and they have to be started from a cold state when you go to reboot them. So if it runs out of material, production has to stop, the machine has to take about 10 to 12 hours to cool down, and then it has to heat back up. Now, this is all very unfortunate, but I've got to follow my orders. So I clock out and I go home. The next morning rolls around and I am called into the plant supervisor's office. And this guy is my supervisor's boss and is one of the owners of the entire company. He is shaking mad because just as my coworker predicted, 3 machines shut down overnight and were going to be out of commission until nearly 2 p.m. that afternoon. He was going to fire me on the spot, but gave me a chance to explain myself. When I told him what I used to do and what my supervisor had told me to do. He let out a big sigh and told me to go back to the floor, and that if I need to take overtime just to keep the machine from going offline, I should just do it from now on. Now, shortly after that, my main supervisor was called into his office. Now, unfortunately, he is the son of one of the other owners, so they didn't fire him. But after that, I never got yelled at about taking overtime ever again. Wow, that supervisor was really dumb. If he had any sense about him, he would have been like, yes, please take the overtime. Please make sure that we're still running and we can still do our jobs. Like, this guy honestly did not know what he was doing. He probably thought you were trying to work the system and he was catching you in the act or something like that, when in reality, you're probably one of the main players that keeps that place running in the first place. And boy, did he learn that really quickly as well. And while it is kind of disappointing that this guy didn't get fired, and honestly, in this situation, nepotism really sucks, it is really nice that you never got bothered ever again, because your supervisor was a complete moron, and now you get to enjoy the fruits of having overtime basically whenever you want. Am I the jerk for turning down a bridesmaid that I was assigned to at a wedding after she was determined to hook up with me at the end of the night? Here's what happened. One of my good friends from college was getting married. We'll call him Tom, that's not his real name. And we will call his wife Liz, also not her real name. And my friend asked me to be one of his groomsmen. I was honored because I hadn't seen him in a while since I live across the country. When I arrived to his city, I was assigned a bridesmaid. We'll call her Kelly. Now, Kelly is a lovely woman. However, I think we were only assigned to each other because we are both black. Liz starts telling me that we are both single and perfect for each other, but there was nothing to indicate that at all besides us both just being black. I should also add that Liz had a lot more bridesmaids than Tom had as groomsmen. The first night the entire wedding party went out, and it became clear that Kelly wanted to hook up. I was not into her at all, so I kindly turned her down. She then starts interrogating me as to why. I try to give a generic answer, but she starts listing off all of the reasons why we would be so perfect for each other. I end up saying that I don't do the whole short-term type of thing, and as we both live in completely different states, there is no future here. She ends up cooling off, but then tells me that she respects me more for that, and that I am a stand-up guy, and the type of guy that she is looking for. During the rest of the time we were there, one of the other unmatched brides, we'll call her Jen, starts messaging me privately, and we hit it off. The next day, the wedding ceremony goes well, we have the reception, and me and Kelly do our entrance together, and then we dance together for a little bit. After a bit, I go to the bar, and Jen and I start to dance. At this point, Kelly is giving me dirty looks, but I just ignore it and continue to have a good time. All is going well until when I am at the bar, Kelly and Liz confront me and start saying that me dancing with Jen is inappropriate. They start saying she is too young for me and that it looks really creepy. For reference, I'm 32 years old and she is 24, about to turn 25. So I say to them, oh, it's okay. Me and Jen are just like friends. Liz at this point is angry with me and starts saying that Jen is in college. She's going for her master's degree and that this is her wedding and she doesn't want to see that. Then Kelly starts to say that I must have a thing for white women. At this point, I realize that there is no logical argument that I can make. I tell Kelly and Liz that I really enjoyed the wedding, but I need to go to bed early for my flight the next day. So I leave and I go to my hotel. 15 minutes later, Jen leaves early. And 5 minutes after Jen came up, we both get kicked out of the wedding party chat. I later found out from Tom that Kelly was crying her eyes out and that I messed up the night for Liz as well. He told me that he isn't mad at me because he told Liz from the start that Kelly isn't going to be my type, but instead, Liz really wanted to set Kelly up. At this point, I feel terrible that I made it so Liz was not able to enjoy her special night. But when it comes to Kelly, I just wish that she would understand that no means no. First and foremost, this is honestly ridiculously crazy. They only matched you with Kelly because of your skin color. That is honestly really weird to me, and that's so disrespectful. And it was all under the guise of saying, okay, let's just try and match you up with somebody. I'm gonna be matchmaker and get Kelly a date. Like, seriously, what are you doing? This is like some next level crazy. The original poster made it very clear. I'm not interested in hooking up with Kelly at the short term. I don't want to get with her, and honestly, this is really weird. And also, they can't tell the original poster who he can and cannot dance with. He had every right to dance with that lady. There was nothing wrong with it, and honestly, them trying to be like, wow, you're really weird. You have a thing for white women. Like, what are you talking about? They were having fun and they were just enjoying themselves. It's not like the original poster's married to Kelly. He doesn't even like her. So seriously, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation, but instead, I think the wife is incredibly messed up and also a massive jerk for trying to set you up. My mom calls me constantly throughout the day, forcing me to stay on the phone with her for over 5 hours at a time, all because she's grieving the loss of a family member. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So this past week, my mom lost her father. Although I can't begin to understand what she is feeling, I did lose my dad when I was 18. With that being said, since he passed away, my mom has been calling me 10 plus times a day, and I often spend 3 to 5 hours on the phone talking to her about my dad and her missing him. Last night, she said I sounded rude, and I finally snapped. I said to her, not to be rude, but you have called me 16 times today, and I've spent 5 hours on the phone with you today, and I just don't know what to say anymore. It wasn't right, but I'd spent so much time on the phone or just waiting for the phone to ring again that I was just so done. She yelled at me and said that I need to be there for a family member in crisis, and that she would support me and stay on the phone with me all day if I needed it, while also saying that it hurts that I won't do the same for her. This morning, she even doubled down and keeps texting me about how I need to learn kindness and how I should support her while she is in crisis, and I honestly just don't have it in me. I can't support someone who is demanding all my time. I have a life too, and she just doesn't care. Like, she even makes those snarky comments saying stuff like, I'm sorry my pain and hurt is cutting into your time. But it's like I'm in school or at work. I feel like I'm a horrible person for feeling this way, but it is just too much on me mentally. How do I set boundaries with her? And how do I make her listen? Am I being unreasonable, or does this seem like way too much? What should I do? I do not think you're being unreasonable at all. Your mom is not only guilt tripping you into staying on the phone for 3 to 5 hours at a time, but she's also calling you obnoxiously and treating you like her therapist, which honestly, it kind of sounds like she needs one of those. I mean, I understand that she's grieving, but the way she's going about trying to figure that grief out is really invading your life. So personally, I think it's time to start setting boundaries. Tell her that no, you're not going to answer at the drop of a hat, and she can't call you multiple times throughout the day. Maybe set up like a window from 5 to 6 o'clock at night where she can talk to you and have some kind of conversation. Because what she's doing right now is really invasive and really weird. I mean, she's calling more than 10 times a day and spending hours on the phone. I don't know about you, but I got stuff to do during the day, and I can't just spend that on the phone trying to console my mother, who is clearly inconsolable. I mean, I'm surprised you even put up with this for as long as you did. So hopefully some kind of boundary can be set up between you and your mom, because right now she's being really weird, and that's not fair for you or your life in the slightest. An entitled Karen attacks me after I leave a negative review for her toy store, shoving me out the store and forcing both of us to call the police. And now I'm stuck unsure if I'm the jerk in this situation or if I should have done things differently. Here's what happened. The following story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So this happened about a week ago. My husband, who's a 27-year-old male, as well as myself, a 27-year-old female, recently moved across the country to this much quieter town and started looking for small businesses to go to. One day, we found what looked to be an interesting toy store. So while I watched our 1.5-year-old son, my husband went to go check it out. When he got there, the lady running the store, who we later found out to be the owner, started acting rather odd towards my husband. She began acting suspicious of him and rather rude. All the while, he tried to just be nice, thinking the lady might cool down after a moment or two, but when she asked if he was looking for something, he said he was looking to price check and look around, maybe see if they had an item he was specifically looking for. He even mentioned a competitor in town and that he had price checked their prices earlier in the day. Somehow that seemed to set her off, and she began going on about how they send people to spy on her, take pictures of her store, items, and prices, and that they are just greedy. In the next moment, she suddenly turned on him, ranting and saying he was probably just another one of their spies, all coming in just to steal from her. At that moment, he decided to just find something small and just leave, still trying to be pleasant, but also just wanting to get out of there. She then snapped at him, yelling at him to just go and leave, to just take the item and get out of there. He was so surprised and said he wanted to pay for it. And again, she snapped and told him to go, so he did just that. Not long after, he called me telling me what happened as he drove home. I was shocked and disgusted by the lady's behavior, so I went online to Google, Yelp, and her store's Facebook page, giving each an honest review of my husband's experience at her business. Not even 30 minutes later, she commented by saying, "First of all, that is not at all what happened. I strongly urge you to discuss what really happened with your husband and enjoy the free gift I gave him. I would highly recommend rethinking your words on the reviews because this is now slander. But thanks for bashing a small business. I bet you feel like a keyboard hero now." I was surprised by this, and I will admit I got really irritated. But thought that maybe there was some kind of miscommunication or misunderstanding of some sort, specifically between her and my husband. So I said to her, okay, then explain to me what happened, because he definitely talked to me about what happened. And honestly, this is where things begin to really pop off. She then completely ignored what I just said, and in another comment thread of my review, posted a picture of my husband from what I am guessing in her surveillance system, and said with it, "Thank you so much for whatever you told your wife. I hope you really enjoy your free gift." And again, I got really irritated, but I also noticed something in that moment. She wasn't saying what really happened. So I responded with, "Oh, so you're avoiding my question. What is your side of the story? What happened?" Not long after that reply, my husband finally got home. I asked him for the toy, and when he asked why, I said I'm going to return it and ask her what she thinks happened, since she was giving me no straight answer online. Fast forward, and when I got to her store, I was immediately met with hostility. She asked if I was such and such online and wanted to know my name. So I said honestly, yes, that's me. She then asked for us to talk outside, and I said sure, go ahead. I did not speak to her with any form of aggression. I just wanted to return the toy and get clarification. However, I never got the chance to just talk with her, and instead, when I went to put the toy on the register, she blocked my way. She yelled at me, "I don't want you here." And immediately, without any other warning or giving me a chance to respond, she physically shoved me towards the door. In shock of the moment, and still just in the mindset of wanting to be rid of this stupid toy, I threw it off to the side and into the store, and I saw it hit the floor just before having the door shut in my face. We both called the cops, and I sat in my car waiting for them while she hid in her locked store. We both talked to them separately, and I told them how she shoved me. She told them that I hit her with a toy first. In the end, I was given an 18-month trespassing citation for her claiming that I hit her with a toy, which honestly, the citation means nothing to me, as both my husband and I have no intention of ever returning, especially after the way she treated us. However, I feel the cops did this to make her happy, as she seemed the most agitated, and just to make sure that I wouldn't come in and contact her ever again, which I agreed with and I understood. They just wanted to make sure there was no further conflict and that this didn't escalate any further. The officers did say, however, that I shouldn't have made a personal situation public. I didn't argue, but I thought this was odd. I mean, I posted in her review section our experience at her store. Isn't that what a review section is for? The next day, I noticed on both my Google review and my Facebook review that she stated, "We believe the authorities handled this situation appropriately, and it was much to our satisfaction." I ended up responding in kind by saying, "I also agree the authorities handled it well. After all, we had no intentions of returning after how we were treated. Nor do we intend to after the 18 months are up." But after thinking on it for some time, I think the both of us got worked up over a misunderstanding, even though I don't know what set you off first at my husband. Now, I'm still willing to hear your side of the story, as that was half of my intention yesterday, alongside returning your toy. If you're willing to, you can direct message me and talk. If not, I understand. And this will be the last time you will hear from my husband and myself. I will also be keeping my 1-star review up, as that is an honest experience of what happened at your store. Later on, I thought back on the events and I realized something. If I did supposedly hit her with a toy, why was no assault charge made? I feel it's because she didn't want to turn her surveillance recordings over, showing that she had laid her hands on me first. However, we do not plan to take her to court for assault either, because we feel it may be too much trouble and way too difficult to try and force her to release the footage. A few days later, we noticed her Facebook page had blocked me, and seeing through a friend's account, we saw that she had removed and hidden reviews from there. However, on all the reviews on other sites that I had put up, those negative reviews were still there. And lastly, we noticed that on her Google page, she had roughly 7 negative reviews saying the same thing. So honestly, are we the jerks in this situation? What should we do? Honestly, I really wish you had your phone with you and you recorded that interaction going into that store. That's honestly the first thing I would have done. That would have cleared up all of this. Because of course, she's not going to give over her footage. She's not going to say you assaulted her, because that could very easily be proved otherwise by her footage. She literally didn't have a leg to stand on. Like seriously, this lady has some issues. She came at your husband and then you physically? Like good lord, that is not okay. So to answer your question, no, you are not the jerk here. This lady was totally out of line. Like she was not only paranoid from the get-go about your husband, but she was also hyper-aggressive, literally because you were sharing the truth online and it made her look bad. And you know that got under her skin. You know for a fact that she absolutely hated that negative review. That probably hurt her way more than anything else you could have done. And you know what? You found other reviews reviews that corroborated your evidence. So trust me, it's not just you. This lady has a problem, and if anything, her business is probably going to shut down eventually. So nope, you are not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, and this lady is absolutely insane. And hopefully her business fails sooner than later. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for divorcing my cheating wife after she cheated on me with a coworker? Here's what happened. Now, before we go any further, all names in this story are completely fake. Well, the title says it all. The moment I discovered my wife Sarah's infidelity is forever etched in my memory. It was a typical evening, and I had returned home from work due to feeling unwell. As I walked into our house, a sense of unease washed over me, prompting me to investigate what had been bothering me for weeks. My suspicion had been growing steadily, fueled by subtle changes in Sarah's behavior and the distant look in her eyes. Deep down, I knew something was amiss, but I wanted to trust her completely. However, on that fateful evening, my intuition got the better of me. I made my way to our study, where Sarah often spent time on her computer. As I approached, I noticed her quickly minimize a chat window on the screen. Alarm bells rang in my head as I realized that she was trying to hide something from me. The sense of betrayal intensified, and I mustered the courage to confront her about it. With trembling hands, I asked Sarah to show me what she had been hiding. At first, she hesitated and tried to deflect, but the desperation in my voice and the tears welling up in my eyes left her with no choice but to reveal the truth. She confessed to having an affair with her coworker Steve for several months. The words hung heavily in the air, piercing through my heart like a dagger. The pain was excruciating, as if my entire world had crumbled in an instant. My mind raced with a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sadness, and disbelief all vied for dominance. In that moment, the trust we had built over a decade of marriage shattered irreparably. The foundation upon which our relationship stood had crumbled, leaving behind nothing but a hollow shell of what once was. I knew then that I couldn't continue the marriage, not after such a profound betrayal. As the days passed, I sought solace and clarity by staying with my parents. The pain was unbearable, but it allowed me to reflect on the situation and consider my options. The more I pondered, the more convinced I became that divorce was the only path forward. The breach of trust was too deep, and I couldn't envision a future where I couldn't fully trust Sarah again. With a heavy heart, I made the agonizing decision to file for divorce. Sarah pleaded with me for another chance, promising change and expressing remorse for her actions, but deep down, I knew that rebuilding the trust that we once had was an impossible task. Throughout the divorce proceedings, Sarah's pleas continued, but my resolve remained unyielding. I wanted to break free from the pain and betrayal that had consumed our relationship. It was a painful and emotional journey, but I knew it was the right choice for my own well-being. Months later, the divorce was finalized. Sarah was left devastated, and I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The weight of the past slowly lifted from my shoulders, allowing me to begin the process of healing and moving forward. In the midst of rebuilding my life, I cautiously opened myself up to the possibility of love once again. And it was during this time that I met Jenny, a remarkable woman who embodied the qualities I had longed for in a partner. Her kindness and honesty and unwavering loyalty helped restore my faith in love. Jenny became my rock, supporting me through the healing process and showing me that love could be pure and genuine. With her by my side, I rediscovered happiness and fulfillment. We forged a deep connection, and a year later, we celebrated our marriage, grateful for the love and joy that we found in each other. As for Sarah, her whereabouts and actions became inconsequential to me. While rumors reached me that she had moved away, I made a conscious choice not to keep tabs on her. My focus shifted towards my own happiness, the well-being of my new family, and the pursuit of a life that is fulfilling. Reflecting on the situation, seeking revenge was initially a part of my emotional response. However, I came to realize that revenge would not bring me true happiness or closure. Divorcing Sarah, on the other hand, allowed me to break free from the pain and betrayal, paving the way for a brighter future. Today, I am finally content with my life. Jenny's love and the family we've created bring me immeasurable joy. I am grateful for the strength I found within myself and for the blessings that have come my way. While the past held moments of intense pain, it has shaped me into a resilient individual who values trust, loyalty, and personal happiness above all else. Wow, this story had a great ending at the end of the day. Obviously, you're not the jerk for divorcing your wife for cheating on you. If I was in your shoes and I experienced something like that, I think I would also be devastated and really want to get away from her. over. I mean, you saw right away that this is just not gonna work. There's no way you can even begin to try and repair this, and it was better to get out of that relationship while you could and move on to somebody who really would love you. Because what Sarah did to you was unacceptable. She cheated on you behind your back with a coworker, and now she's probably wondering, well, was it worth it? And I can guarantee you that the answer is a resounding no. So good for you for moving on and finding a better life, because Sarah betrayed your trust, and from the sounds of it, it looks like your new wife is gonna treat you a lot better than Sarah ever could. My boyfriend is giving me the silent treatment all because he's embarrassed of his actions. And honestly, at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years, and we just moved in together a few months ago. I'll preface this by saying that we went to a football game earlier, and he had quite a bit to drink. He stopped when we got home so he could sober up. That way we could go see his friends tonight. But he still seemed a bit tipsy when this whole thing went down. About an hour ago, we were getting ready to go see his friends. He was in the bathroom, and all of a sudden, I hear him freak out. Apparently, our dog had gone pee on the floor in the bathroom. About a half hour prior to this, she had been staring at us in a needy sort of way, which she does literally 24/7, making it hard to decipher what she needs, if anything. So I thought that maybe she needed to go potty, but he didn't think so because she had just gotten back from the dog park about an hour before this. He started yelling at her in a lighthearted way, but I told him to stop because she was trying to tell us she needed to go to the bathroom, and neither of us took her out. It was our fault that she had an accident. She's the sweetest, most well-behaved dog. I said that she can't tell whether or not he's playfully yelling at her. All she hears is him raising his voice at her, which clearly scared her because she ran out of the bathroom with her tail tucked between her legs, and she was shaking at that. He stopped yelling at her, went downstairs to grab our food delivery. Then when he came back upstairs, he came over to where me and the dog were. I was sitting at the dining room table, and she was sitting underneath me. He again playfully raised his hand like he was about to hit her, and she was cowering underneath me. I became livid. I yelled at him, "What are you doing?" He laughed and said he was just kidding, as if our dog was supposed to know he wasn't actually going to hit her. He has a dark sense of humor, especially when he drinks, but this was absolutely unacceptable. It left a horrible taste in my mouth. After this, we didn't say anything to each other. I ate my dinner at the kitchen counter while he ate behind me at the dining table. He was eating spaghetti and was very loudly slurping his noodles. He's eaten spaghetti in front of me many times, and he's never done that, so I figured that he was just trying to further irritate me. At first, I let it slide, but after the 5th time, I peered back at him and I said, "Do you seriously have the audacity to slurp your noodles?" He sarcastically looks at me and says, "Wow, sorry." I continued eating, and a couple minutes later, he started loudly belching, all while I was still clearly eating. I looked at him again, and he was like, "Geez, sorry, I can't do anything right." Look, I'm not offended by burping normally, but slurping your food and burping while someone is eating in front of you is so grating and entirely bad-mannered to me. Then he passive-aggressively started talking to our dog, saying something like, "Should we just stay home tonight?" And then went and changed into his pajamas and proceeded to not talk to me after that. After we finished eating, he stomped off to the bedroom and slammed the door. I immediately followed him in and asked what his problem was. He didn't respond for a while, and then he said, "I don't like the way you talk to me. You seem annoyed." I said I was annoyed at the time, but I wanted to move on so we don't ruin our weekend yet again. This is the 3rd time he's chosen to silently pout and stomp around like a child, mind you. You know, rather than communicate, and this is what he does in an argument ever since we moved in together. I am beyond fed up with it. The last time was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the silent treatment lasted for 4 full days. I just stood in the doorway waiting for a response, and he kept ignoring me and watching TV. Occasionally, he would shoot me a dirty look and snap and say, "What do you want me to say?" I said, if this relationship is going to continue, we need to start communicating about issues as soon as they arise, not ignore each other for days on end. He said, "I'm embarrassed and I don't want to talk to you," and then motioned for me to get out. So I shut the door, and I've been sitting in the living room ever since then. He's come out 3 times to get something from the kitchen and just keeps shooting me dirty looks and not talking to me. As I said, this is a routine thing that happens during arguments, and I'm beyond fed up. I feel like I'm dating a child, not a grown man who's turning 30 next month. What should I do or say to him? I'm so annoyed that this is happening again, especially when I'm about to leave and spend the night at my parents'. I don't even know if this relationship is worth salvaging. What should I do? Honestly, your boyfriend is being incredibly immature. Giving someone the silent treatment and refusing to talk to them all because of something that you did and the stupid stuff you decided to pull off is honestly so toxic. There's no reason to act like that. Like, seriously, that's inappropriate. You literally just said, "Hey, hey, stop burping and belching and don't pretend like you're gonna hit the dog. And by the way, what he did to that dog was awful. The original poster's right. I don't think that dogs can really understand the nuance of any kind of sarcasm or stuff like that. So if you raise your voice at them, they probably think, oh yeah, you really are mad at me. Or if you fuss at them or make them feel bad, they're gonna feel that and they're gonna think you're upset. So I don't blame the original poster for being like, stop it, what are you doing? Let's also remember that this guy's almost 30 years old, and his way of dealing with problems is to give the silent treatment. That is so immature, it's not even funny. So honestly, if you want any kind of positive change, it's definitely gonna have to start with him. He needs to learn how to communicate better, or at least just own up to his mistakes, because the way he's doing it right now is honestly so toxic, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for fainting at my aunt's wedding and practically ruining it all in one go? Here's what happened. So I'm a 21-year-old female, and I attended my aunt's wedding a few weeks ago. I was not part of the wedding. I was just a guest, which I was fine with. Before the wedding, everyone was advised to drink lots of water and eat something beforehand because it was going to be extremely hot that day. The wedding started at 5:00 p.m. and I had absolutely nothing to eat or drink up until then, except maybe a granola bar because I was extremely busy that day. So when it was time for the wedding, I was already tired and hungry. About 30 minutes into the wedding, which was a church too, by the way, I was feeling uneasy and lightheaded, so I excused myself to go to the washroom. As I was walking, I got the feeling like I was about to collapse. The next thing I can remember was coming to and seeing lots of people surrounding me, including the bride and groom. Apparently, when I fainted, I fell onto the photographer who was crouched down near me. Not only that, but he dropped the camera lens and broke it. To be honest, I don't even remember seeing the photographer, but I may have been too dizzy or something like that to even see him in the first place. Now, the wedding was a bit of a cheaper one, so the photographer was a family friend of the groom's who only had one camera with him. The bride was just in tears that she won't have any good pictures from her wedding. The photographer insisted that he could drive home and grab a different one, but it would unfortunately take too long to do that. The bride was indeed mad at me, but I feel like it was a bit harsh as it was extremely embarrassing for me already. Fainting never even crossed my mind as something that would happen at all. Now, they did get pictures, but unfortunately it was on their cell phones. So am I the jerk for fainting at this wedding and practically ruining it? What should I do? So honestly, I can kind of see both sides of this. Obviously, you didn't mean to faint. I mean, that wasn't really in your control. I mean, nobody shows up to a wedding and is like, hey, I'm definitely gonna faint right about now. But you yourself did say that, hey, I didn't eat or drink all day, even though you knew it was gonna be hot. That part is absolutely on you. Nobody could have predicted that you were gonna pass out. Nobody could have planned for that, and honestly, it really was kind of a freak accident. But I think this could have been avoided if you just drank some water and ate some food. You should not have ignored that advice. Like, clearly the worst thing happened to you specifically. You fainted at the wedding, and now they're never gonna have really good pictures of their wedding. And that's not fair. That literally is not fair in the slightest. Now, don't get me wrong, you didn't do this intentionally, and of course that photographer is really cheap for only bringing one lens with them, but overall you probably should have planned this better, and you should have been more attentive to the advice that you were given. An entitled Karen attacks me after I leave a negative review for her toy store, shoving me out the store and forcing both of us to call the police. And now I'm stuck unsure if I'm the jerk in this situation or if I should have done things differently. Here's what happened. The following story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So this happened about a week ago. My husband, who's a 27-year-old male, as well as myself, a 27-year-old female, recently moved across the country to this much quieter town and started looking for small businesses to go to. One day, we found what looked to be an interesting toy store. So while I watched our 1.5-year-old son, my husband went to go check it out. When he got there, the lady running the store, who we later found out to be the owner, started acting rather odd towards my husband. She began acting suspicious of him and rather rude. All the while, he tried to just be nice, thinking the lady might cool down after a moment or two. But when she asked if he was looking for something, he said he was looking to price check and look around, maybe see if they had an item he was specifically looking for. He even mentioned a competitor in town and that he had price checked their prices earlier in the day. Somehow that seemed to set her off, and she began going on about how they send people to spy on her, take pictures of her store, items, and prices, and that they are just greedy. In the next moment, she suddenly turned on him, ranting and saying he was probably just another one of their spies, all coming in just to steal from her. At that moment, he decided to just find something small and just leave, still trying to be pleasant, but also just wanting to get out of there. She then snapped at him, yelling at him to just go and leave, to just take the item and get out of there. He was so surprised and said he wanted to pay for it. And again, she snapped and told him to go, so he did just that. Not long after, he called me telling me what happened as he drove home. I was shocked and disgusted by the lady's behavior, so I went online to Google, Yelp, and her store's Facebook page, giving each an honest review of my husband's experience at her business. Not even 30 minutes later, she commented by saying, "First of all, that is not at all what happened. I strongly urge you to discuss what really happened with your husband and enjoy the free gift I gave him. I would highly recommend rethinking your words on the reviews because this is now slander. But thanks for bashing a small business. I bet you feel like a keyboard hero now." I was surprised by this, and I will admit I got really irritated, but thought that maybe there was some kind of miscommunication or misunderstanding of some sort, specifically between her and my husband. So I said to her, "Okay, then explain to me what happened," because he definitely talked to me about what happened. And honestly, this is where things begin to really pop off. She then completely ignored what I just said, and in another comment thread of my review, posted a picture of my husband from what I am guessing in her surveillance system, and said with it, "Thank you so much for whatever you told your wife. I hope you really enjoy your free gift." And again, I got really irritated, but I also noticed something in that moment. She wasn't saying what really happened. So I responded with, "Oh, so you're avoiding my question. What is your side of the story? What happened?" Not long after that reply, my husband finally got home. I asked him for the toy, and when he asked why, I said I'm going to return it and ask her what she thinks happened, since she was giving me no straight answer online. Fast forward, and when I got to her store, I was immediately met with hostility. She asked if I was such and such online and wanted to know my name. So I said honestly, yes, that's me. She then asked for us to talk outside, and I said sure, go ahead. I did not speak to her with any form of aggression. I just wanted to return the toy and get clarification. However, I never got the chance to just talk with her, and instead, when I went to put the toy on the register, she blocked my way. She yelled at me, "I don't want you here." And immediately, without any other warning or giving me a chance to respond, she physically shoved me towards the door. In shock of the moment, and still just in the mindset of wanting to be rid of this stupid toy, I threw it off to the side and into the store, and I saw it hit the floor just before having the door shut in my face. We both called the cops, and I sat in my car waiting for them while she hid in her locked store. We both talked to them separately, and I told them how she shoved me. She told them that I hit her with the toy first. In the end, I was given an 18-month trespassing citation for her claiming that I hit her with the toy, which honestly, the citation means nothing to me, as both my husband and I have no intention of ever returning, especially after the way she treated us. However, I feel the cops did this to make her happy, as she seemed the most agitated, and just to make sure that I wouldn't come in and contact her ever again, which I agreed with and I understood. They just wanted to make sure there was no further conflict and that this didn't escalate any further. The officers did say, however, that I shouldn't have made a personal situation public. I didn't argue, but I thought this was odd. I mean, I posted in her review section our experience at her store. Isn't that what a review section is for? The next day, I noticed on both my Google review and my Facebook review that she stated, "We believe the authorities handled this situation appropriately, and it was much to our satisfaction." I ended up responding in kind by saying, "I also agree the authorities handled it well. After all, we had no intentions of returning after how we were treated. Nor do we intend to after the 18 months are up. But after thinking on it for some time, I think the both of us got worked up over a misunderstanding, even though I don't know what set you off first at my husband. Now, I'm still willing to hear your side of the story, as that was half of my intention yesterday, alongside returning your toy. If you're willing to, you can direct message me and talk. If not, I understand. And this will be the last time you will hear from my husband and myself. I will also be keeping my 1-star review up, as that is an honest experience of what happened at your store. Later on, I thought back on the events and I realized something. If I did supposedly hit her with a toy, why was no assault charge made? I feel it's because she didn't want to turn her surveillance recordings over, showing that she had laid her hands on me first. However, we do not plan to take her to court for assault either, because we feel it may be too much trouble and way too difficult to try and force her to release the footage. A few days later, we noticed her Facebook page had blocked me, and seeing through a friend's account, we saw that she had removed and hidden reviews from there. However, on all the reviews on other sites that I had put up, those negative reviews were still there. And lastly, we noticed that on her Google page, she had roughly 7 negative reviews saying the same thing. So honestly, are we the jerks in this situation? What should we do? Honestly, I really wish you had your phone with you and you recorded that interaction going into that store. That's honestly the first thing I would have done. That would have cleared up all of this. Because of course, she's not going to give over her footage. She's not going to say you assaulted her, because that could very easily be proved otherwise by her footage. She literally didn't have a leg to stand on. Like seriously, this lady has some issues. She came at your husband and then you physically? Like good lord, that is not okay. So to answer your question, no, you are not the jerk here. This lady was totally out of line. Like she was not only paranoid from the get-go about your husband, but she was also hyper-aggressive, literally because you were sharing the truth online and it made her look bad. And you know that got under her skin. You know for a fact that she absolutely hated that negative review. That probably hurt her way more than anything else you could have done. And you know what? You found other reviews that corroborated your evidence. So trust me, it's not just you. This lady has a problem, and if anything, her business is probably going to shut down eventually. So nope, you are not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, and this lady is absolutely insane. And hopefully her business fails sooner than later. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for divorcing my cheating wife after she cheated on me with a coworker? Here's what happened. Now, before we go any further, all names in this story are completely fake. Well, the title says it all. The moment I discovered my wife Sarah's infidelity is forever etched in my memory. It was a typical evening, and I had returned home from work due to feeling unwell. As I walked into our house, a sense of unease washed over me, prompting me to investigate what had been bothering me for weeks. My suspicion had been growing steadily, fueled by subtle changes in Sarah's behavior and the distant look in her eyes. Deep down, I knew something was amiss, but I wanted to trust her completely. However, on that fateful evening, my intuition got the better of me. I made my way to our study, where Sarah often spent time on her computer. As I approached, I noticed her quickly minimize a chat window on the screen. Alarm bells rang in my head as I realized that she was trying to hide something from me. The sense of betrayal intensified, and I mustered the courage to confront her about it. With trembling hands, I asked Sarah to show me what she had been hiding. At first, she hesitated and tried to deflect, but the desperation in my voice and the tears welling up in my eyes left her with no choice but to reveal the truth. She confessed to having an affair with her coworker Steve for several months. The words hung heavily in the air, piercing through my heart like a dagger. The pain was excruciating, as if my entire world had crumbled in an instant. My mind raced with a whirlwind of emotions. Anger, sadness, and disbelief all vied for dominance. In that moment, the trust we had built over a decade of marriage shattered irreparably. The foundation upon which our relationship stood had crumbled, leaving behind nothing but a hollow shell of what once was. I knew then that I couldn't continue the marriage, not after such a profound betrayal. As the days passed, I sought solace and clarity by staying with my parents. The pain was unbearable, but it allowed me to reflect on the situation and consider my options. The more I pondered, the more convinced I became that divorce was the only path forward. The breach of trust was too deep, and I couldn't envision a future where I couldn't fully trust Sarah again. With a heavy heart, I made the agonizing decision to file for divorce. Sarah pleaded with me for another chance, promising change and expressing remorse for her actions, but deep down, I knew that rebuilding the trust that we once had was an impossible task. Throughout the divorce proceedings, Sarah's pleas continued, but my resolve remained unyielding. I wanted to break free from the pain and betrayal that had consumed our relationship. It was a painful and emotional journey, but I knew it was the right choice for my own well-being. Months later, the divorce was finalized. Sarah was left devastated, and I felt a mix of relief and sorrow. The weight of the past slowly lifted from my shoulders, allowing me to begin the process of healing and moving forward. In the midst of rebuilding my life, I cautiously opened myself up to the possibility of love once again. And it was during this time that I met Jenny, a remarkable woman who embodied the qualities I had longed for in a partner. Her kindness and honesty and unwavering loyalty helped restore my faith in love. Jenny became my rock, supporting me through the healing process and showing me that love could be pure and genuine. With her by my side, I rediscovered happiness and fulfillment. We forged a deep connection, and a year later, we celebrated our marriage, grateful for the love and joy that we found in each other. As for Sarah, her whereabouts and actions became inconsequential to me. While rumors reached me that she had moved away, I made a conscious choice not to keep tabs on her. My focus shifted towards my own happiness, the well-being of my new family, family, and the pursuit of a life that is fulfilling. Reflecting on the situation, seeking revenge was initially a part of my emotional response. However, I came to realize that revenge would not bring me true happiness or closure. Divorcing Sarah, on the other hand, allowed me to break free from the pain and betrayal, paving the way for a brighter future. Today, I am finally content with my life. Jenny's love and the family we've created bring me immeasurable joy. I am grateful for the strength I found within myself and for the blessings that have come my way. While the past held moments of intense pain, it has shaped me into a resilient individual who values trust, loyalty, and personal happiness above all else. Wow, this story had a great ending at the end of the day. Obviously, you're not the jerk for divorcing your wife for cheating on you. If I was in your shoes and I experienced something like that, I think I would also be devastated and really want to get away from her. I mean, you saw right away that this is just not going to work. There's no way you can even begin to try and repair this, and it was better to get out of that relationship while you could and move on to somebody who really would love you. Because what Sarah did to you was unacceptable. She cheated on you behind your back with a coworker, and now she's probably wondering, well, was it worth it? And I can guarantee you that the answer is a resounding no. So good for you for moving on and finding a better life, because Sarah betrayed your trust, and from the sounds of it, it looks like your new wife is going to treat you a lot better than Sarah ever could. My boyfriend is giving me the silent treatment all because he's embarrassed of his actions. And honestly, at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years, and we just moved in together a few months ago. I'll preface this by saying that we went to a football game earlier, and he had quite a bit to drink. He stopped when we got home so he could sober up. That way we could go see his friends tonight. But he still seemed a bit tipsy when this whole thing went down. About an hour ago, we were getting ready to go see his friends. He was in the bathroom, and all of a sudden, I hear him freak out. Apparently, our dog had gone pee on the floor in the bathroom. About a half hour prior to this, she had been staring at us in a needy sort of way, which she does literally 24/7, making it hard to decipher what she needs, if anything. So I thought that maybe she needed to go potty, but he didn't think so because she had just gotten back from the dog park about an hour before this. He started yelling at her in a lighthearted way, but I told him to stop because she was trying to tell us she needed to go to the bathroom, and neither of us took her out. It was our fault that she had an accident. She's the sweetest, most well-behaved dog. I said that she can't tell whether or not he's playfully yelling at her. All she hears is him raising his voice at her, which clearly scared her because she ran out of the bathroom with her tail tucked between her legs, and she was shaking at that. He stopped yelling at her, went downstairs to grab our food delivery. Then when he came back upstairs, he came over to where me and the dog were. I was sitting at the dining room table, and she was sitting underneath me. He again playfully raised his hand like he was about to hit her, and she was cowering underneath me. I became livid. I yelled at him, "What are you doing?" He laughed and said he was just kidding, as if our dog was supposed to know he wasn't actually going to hit her. He has a dark sense of humor, especially when he drinks, but this was absolutely unacceptable. It left a horrible taste in my mouth. After this, we didn't say anything to each other. I ate my dinner at the kitchen counter while he ate behind me at the dining table. He was eating spaghetti and was very loudly slurping his noodles. He's eaten spaghetti in front of me many times, and he's never done that, so I figured that he was just trying to further irritate me. At first, I let it slide, but after the 5th time, I peered back at him and I said, "Do you seriously have the audacity to slurp your noodles?" He sarcastically looks at me and says, "Wow, sorry." I continued eating, and a couple minutes later, he started loudly belching, all while I was still clearly eating. I looked at him again, and he was like, "Geez, sorry, I can't do anything right." Look, I'm not offended by burping normally, but slurping your food and burping while someone is eating in front of you is so grating and entirely bad-mannered to me. Then he passive-aggressively started talking to our dog, saying something like, "Should we just stay home tonight?" And then went and changed into his pajamas and proceeded to not talk to me after that. After we finished eating, he stomped off to the bedroom and slammed the door. I immediately followed him in and asked what his problem was. He didn't respond for a while, and then he said, "I don't like the way you talk to me. You seem annoyed." I said I was annoyed at the time, but I wanted to move on so we don't ruin our weekend yet again. This is the 3rd time he's chosen to silently pout and stomp around like a child, mind you. You know, rather than communicate, and this is what he does in an argument ever since we moved in together. I am beyond fed up with it. The last time was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and the silent treatment lasted for 4 full days. I just stood in the doorway waiting for a response, and he kept ignoring me and watching TV. Occasionally, he would shoot me a dirty look and snap and say, "What do you want me to say?" I said, if this relationship is going to continue, we need to start communicating about issues as soon as they arise, not ignore each other for days on end. He said said, "I'm embarrassed and I don't want to talk to you," and then motioned for me to get out. So I shut the door, and I've been sitting in the living room ever since then. He's come out 3 times to get something from the kitchen and just keeps shooting me dirty looks and not talking to me. As I said, this is a routine thing that happens during arguments, and I'm beyond fed up. I feel like I'm dating a child, not a grown man who's turning 30 next month. What should I do or say to him? I'm so annoyed that this is happening again, especially when I'm about to leave and spend the night at my parents'. I don't even know if this relationship is worth salvaging. What should I do? Honestly, your boyfriend is being incredibly immature. Giving someone the silent treatment and refusing to talk to them all because of something that you did and the stupid stuff you decided to pull off is honestly so toxic. There's no reason to act like that. Like, seriously, that's inappropriate. You literally just said, "Hey, stop burping and belching and don't pretend like you're gonna hit the dog." And by the way, what he did to that dog was awful. The original poster's right. I don't think that dogs can really understand the nuance of any kind of sarcasm or stuff like that. So if you raise your voice at them, they probably think, "Oh yeah, you really are mad at me." Or if you fuss at them or make them feel bad, they're gonna feel that and they're gonna think you're upset. So I don't blame the original poster for being like, "Stop it, what are you doing?" Let's also remember that this guy's almost 30 years old, and his way of dealing with problems is to give the silent treatment. That is so immature, it's not even funny. So honestly, if you want any kind of positive change, it's definitely gonna have to start with him. He needs to learn how to communicate better, or at least just own up to his mistakes, because the way he's doing it right now is honestly so toxic, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for fainting at my aunt's wedding and practically ruining it all in one go? Here's what happened. So I'm a 21-year-old female, and I attended my aunt's wedding a few weeks ago. I was not part of the wedding. I was just a guest, which I was fine with. Before the wedding, everyone was advised to drink lots of water and eat something beforehand because it was going to be extremely hot that day. The wedding started at 5:00 p.m., and I had absolutely nothing to eat or drink up until then, except maybe a granola bar because I was extremely busy that day. So when it was time for the wedding, I was already tired and hungry. About 30 minutes into the wedding, which was a church too, by the way, I was feeling uneasy and lightheaded, so I excused myself to go to the washroom. As I was walking, I got the feeling like I was about to collapse. The next thing I can remember was coming to and seeing lots of people surrounding me, including the bride and groom. Apparently, when I fainted, I fell onto the photographer who was crouched down near me. Not only that, but he dropped the camera lens and broke it. To be honest, I don't even remember seeing the photographer, but I may have been too dizzy or something like that to even see him in the first place. Now, the wedding was a bit of a cheaper one, so the photographer was a family friend of the groom's who only had one camera with him. The bride was just in tears that she won't have any good pictures from her wedding. The photographer insisted that he could drive home and grab a different one, but it would unfortunately take too long to do that. The bride was indeed mad at me, but I feel like it was a bit harsh as it was extremely embarrassing for me already. Fainting never even crossed my mind as something that would happen at all. Now, they did get pictures, but unfortunately it was on their cell phones. So am I the jerk for fainting at this wedding and practically ruining it? What should I do? So honestly, I can kind of see both sides of this. Obviously, you didn't mean to faint. I mean, that wasn't really in your control. I mean, nobody shows up to a wedding and is like, "Hey, I'm definitely gonna faint right about now." But you yourself did say that, "Hey, I didn't eat or drink all day," even though you knew it was gonna be hot. That part is absolutely on you. Nobody could have predicted that you were gonna pass out. Nobody could have planned for that, and honestly, it really was kind of a freak accident. But I think this could have been avoided if you just drank some water and ate some food. You should not have ignored that advice. Like, clearly the worst thing happened to you specifically. You fainted at the wedding, and now they're never gonna have really good pictures of their wedding. And that's not fair. That literally is not fair in the slightest. Now, don't get me wrong, you didn't do this intentionally, and of course that photographer is really cheap for only bringing one lens with them. But overall, you probably should have planned this better, and you should have been more attentive to the advice that you were given. An entitled Karen demands that I let her young children into an advanced parkour class that I teach, and despite the fact that I told her they are not ready to be at this kind of level, she demanded that they be involved no matter what. And as a result, one of the kids got hurt, and this entitled Karen seriously tried to blame it on me. And I've never been more shocked by someone's stupidity in my life. Here's what happened. So I work as an instructor teaching parkour and free running basic skills to small children ages 2 to 6 years old. And most of my classes are in private institutions like schools or specialized gyms. Now, I say the basics, but it really is more bodily control and perception than bona fide parkour since they are very young. I separate kids based on age and skill into different classes, which challenges them accordingly. Having the older kids dip their toes into actual parkour and free running skills. Now, I had this mother, who basically is the entitled Karen of this story, and two of her kids, ages 2 and 3 years old respectively, come for a test class to see if the kids are interested. The kids enjoyed the class since I tried to make them both challenging and fun by playing games where they had to traverse obstacle courses and try to set up scenarios for them to use their imagination. For example, maybe there's a pirate ship sinking and we have to jump onto the lifeboats or something like that. Something fun that the kids can engage with. The administration later lets me know that they enrolled and all is well. Now, something you have to know about my classes is that even though they are taught in a special order-made room, and I make sure that most surfaces are padded, and I'm super paranoid about any accidents, so I do my best to keep a safe environment, sometimes kids can take a fall, especially if they aren't following instructions or throwing a temper tantrum. And this was the case with the entitled Karen and her two kids, since they were always refusing to listen to instructions and threw tantrums when I tried to explain why they couldn't just run off to play, as if this is just some kind of playground, which it absolutely isn't. After a couple of weeks of this, the entitled Karen comes into my classroom to tell me, not ask me mind you, that her kids are ready for the advanced class, which is for kids ages 5 and 6. And this is because they have grown bored of the kiddie class since they are so much better than the other kids, which they are absolutely not. I politely let her know that although they are indeed pretty active kids, they first have to become responsible for their actions since they tend to push other kids around and not listen to instructions, and therefore they are not yet ready. Since the older kids class is way tougher and I can't just follow two kids around to take care of them and neglect the rest of the class since there could be some kind of accident. But honestly, I wish it ended there because this entitled Karen takes this up a notch in a way that I really didn't expect. Now, these are not in any way big groups. I only take groups of 5 kids at most since it's all I can handle on my own to make sure every kid is as safe as possible. But having to take care of underage kids and leaving 3 other kids unattended is a big no-no in my book. Anyways, this entitled Karen doesn't seem to take my words kindly, but accepts my decision, or so I thought. Next week, I come in to have the receptionist tell me that the entitled Karen had basically thrown a tantrum to let her kids go into the advanced class anyways, all in spite of my warnings, and they were asking me if I could just let this slide this time. Obviously, I'm not okay with this, as it endangers not only these kids, but the other kids as well. But I can just see it now. She storms into the classroom again, angrier this time if I say no. So I have the front desk get her to sign an additional waiver just to try and be on the safe side. The day comes when I have to teach the advanced class, and in comes marching with a smug grin on her face than none other than the entitled Karen and her stupid kids. I welcome them and I start my class, which as I said is way more demanding and has some actual parkour techniques sprinkled in. It would be unfair to the age-appropriate kids to downplay the class just because these entitled kids are enrolled, so I don't do that. However, I keep a close eye on them just to avoid any issues. That day, the kids had to clear a small gap jump and latch onto an edge of a wall and shimmy along while hanging. Picture hanging movement in the Assassin's Creed series. Everything but the floor is padded, of course. However, it is a substantial fall for kids that age. It's about 1.5 meters. So I'm helping one of the older kids shimmy along, and I see the next in line to make the jump is the elder of the entitled siblings, and I ask her to wait for me so that I can spot her jump in case her hands slip or she doesn't clear the gap. She then starts throwing a tantrum about how she's a big girl now and she can do it on her own, to which I respond by saying that she should just let me be there to make sure that she doesn't get hurt. I run back to her after helping the other kids reach the ground and help her reach the wall since she couldn't clear the gap, to which she goes absolutely mad and storms out of the classroom. 5 minutes later, she comes back in with her entitled Karen of a mother, demanding that I let her jump on her own. I once again explain why this is a bad idea, and we run the circuit once again. Again, I am helping the kid lapping before her and ask her to wait for me, but instead of listening, she jumps into the wall, fails to clear the gap, crashes into the wall face first, and then plops onto the ground, knocking the wind out of herself. I rush to check if she's unhurt, which thankfully she is aside from the fall, and she starts swiping at me, and once she recovers, she starts bawling her eyes out and storms out of the classroom again. Now, once again, I'm faced with this entitled Karen demanding to know why I let her daughter get hurt during my class, and starts accusing me of being neglectful and incompetent, and that she'll take measures against the school and me. I tell her I understand she's upset, but I ask that kid to stay still and wait for me. but she refused to listen and to remember that I warned her that they were not ready yet for this class, as they did not follow instructions which were meant to keep them safe. This entitled Karen keeps going on about how I can expect to be fired soon, while also spewing out the usual entitled parent monologue, and then she just straight up leaves. I tell the front desk what just happened, and I ask them to check the cameras in my classroom so that they can have proof in the case that she tries something legally, and reminded them that she had signed a second waiver. Thankfully though, she never did come back, which makes this entire scenario even funnier because she paid for a whole month in advance. Wow, that lady's an awful parent. Can I just say that? This entitled Karen literally put their kids in some kind of class that they were very clearly not ready for. Like, she seriously just couldn't listen to the person that was in charge. She couldn't just allow them to explain, hey, your kids are not ready, because they wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen to a single thing that was being told to them, and that is probably the most dangerous part. They probably could have cleared the jump. They probably could have done all the moves, but they were not mature enough to follow basic instructions. So honestly, the original poster is not at fault. This absolutely falls squarely on this entitled Karen, and she has nobody to blame for this incident except for herself. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk demands my window seat for an 11-hour flight to Cairo, but even when I tell him that no, I'm not going to switch seats, he doesn't take no for an answer and literally almost bothers me for the entire flight. Here's what happened. So this happened a while back, but it's an excellent example of sheer entitlement. I took a flight from New York to Cairo, and the seat configuration was 3 rows of seats, 2 window and aisle on each side, with 4 or 5 middle seats in the center. I had a window over the wing. I chose the seat with sleep in mind many months in advance. While I do frequently travel, I'm not going to pretend that I often jet away to Egypt, so this vacation was very planned out. I was settled into my seat when my aisle mate approached his and asked if I'd be willing to switch with his wife so the two of them could sit together. The two of them seemed to be with a group of similar age travelers. It appeared to me based on chatter that it may have been some kind of group tour, especially with my knowledge of the industry and the organizers that may have neglected the seating assignments. Now, I was absolutely willing to consider a swap if the seat was comparable, but naturally when I asked where his wife's seat was, he pointed and she waved at me from the center of the middle seats. I said to them, no, I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep my seat. Instead of switching out with a middle seat person, who I'm sure would have been delighted to take the aisle so he could still sit next to his wife, he sits down in his seat and starts trying to argue with me. He starts saying how the view is bad anyway since it's over the wing, and how I won't see anything anyways as it's mostly overnight and it's dark out. I just replied that I plan to sleep against it and I decline again. I'm trying to be pleasant and I am a people pleaser, and now I'm stuck next to this guy. He continues to bug me like the mosquito he may have been in a former life. He then asked me, if you had a husband, wouldn't you want to sit with him? At this point, I'm totally irritated. So I stated that I do have a husband, and if my husband and I were traveling together, I'd not only ensure our seats were assigned together, but if they weren't, I'd give up my aisle and go sit with my spouse in the middle. He eventually shut up with the direct comments, but his grumbling persisted throughout the entire flight, just not to my face, as he pretended to ignore my existence. Fast forward and the plane has eventually landed, and believe it or not, this guy was still grumbling the entire time. Wow, what a spoiled little brat. That guy was super entitled. You have it right. If this guy really wanted to sit next to his wife, he should have gone to somebody in the middle and said, hey, can I switch seats with you? Is that okay? But instead of doing that, he wanted to be a jerk and try and take away your seat that you planned for in advance. Like, seriously, their problems are not your problems. The fact that they can't plan their trip properly and they don't know how to, I don't know, pick seats that are next to each other is literally not your fault. These people just don't know how to plan things properly. So if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. I personally would have put headphones on in the middle of his rant, just to show him that not only do I not care anymore, but his noise is honestly not gonna bother me. So good for you for standing your ground, because this guy was incredibly entitled and he literally just wanted to take your seat and give it to his wife. My husband constantly criticizes everything that I enjoy, always making a nasty comment or putting me down for trying something new. And after dealing with this for so many years, I'm at my breaking point, and now I seriously don't know what to do. My husband and I have been together for a little under 5 years and married for about 2.5 years. He feels the need to criticize every last thing that brings me joy in the world. I love classic cars, but I'm not allowed to mention them because of trauma with his dad around cars. I picked up my saxophone for the the first time in years, and I tried to play something quickly to see what I remembered, and he just had to tell me that I sounded like garbage and I needed to practice. I'm not allowed to color in adult coloring books because it's not real art, and he's an artist, not me, and I can't watch shows or movies I like because he can't shut his mouth about everything that's bad in the movie. And today was the breaking point. I wanted to watch the newest Guardians of the Galaxy movie because I've enjoyed the series overall. I started watching it last night and I got about halfway through putting up with his comments before I got too tired and needed to go to bed. He mentioned I should finish watching it, which I then put on the movie from where I left off, and I kept telling him to stop with the comments so I can just watch the movie and enjoy it. I finally reached my breaking point when it got near the end of the movie and he decided that he needed to get angry about a point that he didn't understand that was mentioned multiple times in the movie. I'll admit, I gave a frustrated sigh, and he got angry because he needs to be able to say those things. I left the room in tears because I felt like he just doesn't care at all. He has then proceeded to yell at me because some people are like that, even though I've made it clear over the years that it's extremely frustrating and unnecessary. He keeps trying to defend his point that it's normal and then decided to say that I never let him enjoy anything. Now, he doesn't work and has all the time in the day to do whatever he wants. At this point, I'm at my absolute limit, and I just don't know if I can do this anymore. I have no hobbies, even though he keeps saying I need to find something I enjoy, but every time I do, he has some nasty comments to make, and I just give up because I don't want to listen to it anymore. Is there anything I can do to get him to understand what he is putting me through? What should I do? This is honestly not okay. Your husband is bullying you at every drop of the hat. Anything that you like, anything you want to do or watch, he's got some kind of negative comment he wants to throw in your face. That is so ridiculous. I can't imagine living with that day in and day out. And worst of all, he takes out his frustration on you as if it's your fault that he doesn't understand, I don't know, this stupid movie. If he was paying attention and not commenting, he would probably know exactly what's going on. Meanwhile, you're just trying to watch the movie and not have to explain everything to him because it's not like you know what's going on. Honestly, I don't think you're overreacting here, and I don't blame you for getting upset and breaking into tears. This has been one small thing at a time, and it's built up to this giant pyramid of just awful behavior. And honestly, you do not deserve that in the slightest. And actually, the original poster has some things to say in regards to that. They said that they basically had a wake-up call after she read some of the comments from the story she shared, and she says that she's gonna move forward with divorce. And honestly, if that's the route you want to go, and if this is seriously that kind of pattern where you know this is never gonna fix itself, well then good for you for recognizing it at least. Clearly, this is a lot worse than we may realize as the audience, and hopefully for the sake of your own happiness, this all works out in your favor and you're able to find happiness in your life once again. My mother is demanding money from me in advance for a book that I plan on publishing, claiming that she needs the money for her boyfriend's kids. And at this point, I'm so sick of her and I seriously don't know what to do. So my parents have demanded money from any income I've had most of my life. When I was 12 years old, I had a paper route that I never saw a dollar from. And when I was older, I constantly had to give or loan out money to them and even used an entire paycheck to help cover rent more than once. I always assumed it was both, but after my parents split up, my dad stopped asking for money and my mom didn't. So it was obvious that she was the one always pushing for it. I love my mom, don't get me wrong. She did a lot right with raising me and my siblings. And as much as it sucked to keep giving up my money, I felt that I had to pay her back for everything that she did. And trust me, I know that this was misguided. But after my parents split up, she completely went off the deep end. She started doing heavy substances and was constantly going out to see men. I try not to judge, but it all came to a head when I brought my sons over for a family Thanksgiving years ago, and she literally spent the entire day in her room with two different guys supposedly getting a tattoo that I never saw. Now, she has no stable home, claims to be going to rehab every few months, and has a new boyfriend every time I hear an update from her. She never makes any effort or time to see me or my family, including my 7-year-old son that she has never even met. So fast forward, and I'm now almost done writing a book. It's nothing spectacular, but I'm proud of it, and some people might even like it. I've been posting on Facebook to my friends and family for people to help me review it and give me their thoughts, which is a process that has taken a couple of years, and to no one's surprise, she has done nothing to help with this. Now, I plan to publish this book soon, so I wasn't really surprised when I got a message from her out of the blue saying to me, "With the money you get from the book, you can help me make sure I have a great Christmas with me and my boyfriend's kids." Now, I've shrugged off similar messages from her in the past, but this one really set me off. All I said was, No, any money I make goes to my family, but I wanted to say so much more. She is still in contact with my siblings, so I don't want to upset her and cause more family drama, but what I wanted to say was this. Listen, I'm an amateur author doing my first book. This won't make much, if anything at all, and on the off chance I hit the proverbial lottery and people like it much more than I'm expecting, I still won't give you a cent. My wife deserves help bringing in money for our family. My kids deserve a good education, and I even have friends who say hi every couple of weeks and ask about my children more than you do that, and I would give them money way before I would give you any money. So you know what? Get lost. You and your boyfriend and his kids. You care more about them than you do your own grandchildren. I just wanted to get that off my chest, and maybe one day I can finally tell her exactly how I feel. Yeah, that is such a shame. Your mom is clearly using you and trying to take every cent out of your pocket and literally can't even stand on her own 2 feet. Like seriously, look at the way she lives her life. She goes from boyfriend to boyfriend. She spends all this time without a home or any place to stay. Even when you were a kid, your mom was acting like this. I mean, it kind of makes sense as to why your dad divorced her in the first place. So honestly, even though you weren't able to say all the things you wanted to say to her just to avoid any family drama, good for you for at least saying, nope, you're not getting any money. My family is the only one getting the money. Because you're right, you're a first-time author. The chances of your book getting big are kind of slim to none, but even if it did get big, you deserve all of that money yourself because you've worked for it and you've sacrificed a lot to try and get it done, which is a lot more than anything your mom can say about anything in her life. Am I the jerk for correcting my husband in the way he refers to me as his wife? Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been married for just under a year, and I love him very much. He has an 8-year-old daughter from his previous marriage who I love as my own. He's always been respectful and patient, which is part of why I decided to marry him. We met right before the pandemic when he had been recently widowed the year before, so we tried to take things slow. We ended up being in quarantine together, and after 3 years we decided to tie the knot. The wedding ceremony was everything a girl could dream of, and we've honestly had very few issues in our first year as a couple. It wasn't until we went to pick up his daughter from summer camp that I started seeing an issue. I went to meet up with him at the front desk. I found him chatting with the camp coordinator, which is all well and good, until I overheard what he was saying. He mentioned that his wife made him this jacket and that she was really good at sewing stuff. Now he was mentioning his ex-wife, not me. It bugged me a little bit, but I brushed it off as a one-time thing. Maybe it was just an accident. We don't talk about his ex-wife much unless we're around his daughter, and even then, he usually refers to her as his daughter's mother. I never heard him call her his wife, especially now that we are finally married. It wasn't until a week or two later that I learned he does this a lot. We were at a get-together with some friends from work, and it was my first time meeting them. It was all good until one of them asked me questions about baseball. Now, I will admit, I didn't know much about the sport, and he said that was weird because my husband had mentioned I was really good at the game and even played some in college, and that left me very confused. After talking to some more guys, I found out this was a common issue. A lot of them thought that his ex-wife and I were the same person because my husband called both of us his wife. At this point, I got really offended. He had been married for 10 months and he couldn't even call her his ex-wife yet. I was super awkward and explaining to people that he still called his ex-wife his current wife, and I was utterly humiliated, especially with the amount he does it, and not just to 1 or 2 people, but literally to the entire office. So when we got home, we fought. He said he didn't even think about it that way, that since he never divorced his wife, he never stopped thinking about her as his wife. He still stands by the fact that she is his wife, despite how embarrassing it is to explain to people that I'm not his second wife, but rather his new wife, and that his former wife is his ex. I told him if he really wasn't ready to move on, then he shouldn't have married me in the first place, and if he can't commit to being my husband, then he shouldn't get to call me his wife. I spent the next night at my sister's house ignoring his calls, and we recently started to smooth things over by not talking about them, but I can tell that this is going to be a sore spot in the marriage, and right now I'm desperately trying to save this. So am I the jerk for trying to correct this issue? What should I do? Yeah, that seems really messed up. You are his wife, not his ex-wife who passed away. Like seriously, that needs to be a distinction. It sounds like he has not grieved completely what happened, and he's kind of in denial from the sounds of it. And honestly, that is really sad. I completely understand where he's coming from, but this needs to change. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here. I think you were completely justified in correcting this, and hopefully some kind of solution is brought about from this much sooner than later. My former employer was refusing to pay me my money that he owed me, claiming that he was going through financial hardship and that because because he was closing down his business, he was not going to pay me a single dime. So I decided to get some revenge. And as a result of me being involved, he ended up getting exposed for cheating on his wife, resulting in his life practically being ruined. Here's what happened. So honestly, I want to start off by saying I was just trying to get my money that I was owed. I wasn't trying to ruin this guy's life in the process. That's honestly just what ended up happening. And I was told by some of my friends that I might want to upload this story here. So here we go. Some years back, I ended up doing work for this guy. I'll call him Richard, that's not his real name. And it was just a side job for some extra money, not my career or anything like that. Richard had a small business. It's really boring. I won't really get into any of that. But before me, he had one other employee. So I made two in total. Literally just two employees. That's how small this business was. The thing was, Richard ran his business like garbage. I didn't know the specifics of his financial situation, but based on where he lived, the car that he drove, as well as every other aspect of his life, he was doing pretty well. Maybe it was an inheritance or something like that, but whatever, I didn't know. But his situation in life clearly wasn't due to the business. And again, to reiterate, he ran this business horribly. In fact, he ran this business so badly that after 6 months after I started doing work for him, the business wasn't making any money anymore. So instead of regular payments like usual, the other employee and I had to start asking where our money was before it showed up. Then the payments started getting more and more behind. Eventually, I was owed around $500. Then one day, the other employee tells me, I'm done. He owes me like $5,000 and I'm not going to keep working for nothing. And when I heard that, I was in shock because I had no idea he was owed that much. The trouble with pay clearly went back further than I knew. So Richard ended up coming to me and saying, look, I owe the other guy money and I need to pay him. Do you mind if I get him all paid up? Which means I would have to hold off on paying you for a month or two. But once he's paid off, I swear I'll make it all up to you. Now, because I'm a complete idiot and because I felt bad about the first employee, who was a good guy overall, I said, fine, go right ahead. And honestly, this was such a big mistake as things escalated in a way that I really didn't expect. So I didn't get paid at all for a while, which increased my total up to about $1,500. Then I eventually heard from the other employee and he told me that Richard finally paid him everything he was owed. So I thought to myself, great, now it's my turn, right? Well, I was completely wrong. A few weeks after I heard the other employee was paid up, which I only ever heard from him, never Richard himself, Richard told me he was closing the business, which didn't shock me at all. I mean, surely it had been losing money for quite a while. So I say to him, okay, so where's my money? And I told him exactly how much he owed me. I got back a response that basically said, well, the thing is, I can't really pay you now. And then he started giving me excuses. And this went on for a year. Now, I looked into what my steps were legally, but I would have had to file something in small claims court, as it is only $1,500, and having to get a lawyer would probably eat up most of it. So I just kept bugging Richard about the money. I was saying, hey, just pay me $25 a month. I don't care. But he wouldn't even do that. He told me about how he's got to go through all this stuff to dissolve the business and everything, and how he'll pay me as soon as he can. And overall, he just avoided taking responsibility. At one point, he said something about how people were currently suing him, which honestly is not a big shock, if I wanted to, just so my debt could be added in or something like that. I said, fine, give me their names and numbers. But guess what? He never even did that. Eventually, I realized that nothing was ever going to come of this, and I was just going to be out the money I was owed. But while I'd be doing the work for him, I had emailed back and forth with his wife maybe a dozen times. To this day, I've never met his wife. I've never spoken with her, just communicated through email and text messaging. But she seemed really nice, and she had told me something like, well, Richard won't tell you this, but he doesn't really know what he's going to do with the business, and I know you've been a big help. So I just got the idea that, you know what? This next email I send to Richard about trying to get my money, I'm going to include his wife in on it too, just so she knows how much he sucks. I heard back from her almost right away, and she was like, I'm so sorry about this. Please keep me posted on what happens. Then suddenly, just like magic, Richard started talking about making a payment schedule. He started sending me $100 every month, and the debt got down to about $1,000. I figured that his wife must have gotten on his case about it, and I laughed to myself about how whipped old Richard really was. But then the money suddenly stopped again. The excuses started coming in, and one day, he told me he was just going through a hard time financially right now, which I knew was utter garbage. He still had the nice car, the nice house, etc., but it's not like I had a printout of his bank records that I could easily use to try and call him out on this. On that exact day that he told me this though, I was watching the local pro team's baseball game later that night, and who did I see but Richard himself? And he was in great seats no less. Second row right in front, just off to the right. Every time they zoomed in on a right-handed batter, you could clearly see him. And this was in September, in the midst of a playoff race, so those tickets were not cheap. It's no Perry Mason moment, but the thought of replying to his "I'm having financial trouble" email with a picture of him in those seats and me being like, yeah, I can see that, gave me the best justice idea ever. So I was looking for a good image of him to use, but every time I paused the video, his face got somewhat out of focus. It was clearly him if you watched the video, but I needed a still image that was also clearly him. Then, in the 7th inning, a foul ball got caught about 2 rows behind him, and they zoomed in on that area of the crowd. And there was Richard, clear as day, sitting with his wife of all people. I'm thinking to myself, oh, I got you now. The next morning, I replied to his previous message by sending the screen capture to him. I figured even if I didn't get my money, at least I had that one sweet moment of satisfaction of busting him there. Then, almost at the last second, I decided to send it to his wife too, just so she would know what was going on and how the money had stopped again. And remember how quickly Richard's tune had changed that first time I included her? I even thought that maybe her being in the picture would make her light a fire underneath his butt this time. So I sent it, but I didn't hear anything back from either of them. 2-3 days go by and still nothing. Then I heard from the other employee that I'd worked with. He says, "Hey, did you hear about Richard?" I said to them, "No, what happened?" They say to me, "His wife kicked him out and filed for divorce." I'm saying to myself, there's no way. They say to him, "Yeah, apparently she caught him cheating on her." I responded to my friend by saying the following, I wonder how. Okay, you know what would be crazy? What if that wasn't his wife in that picture? And I sent her that picture and no way. He was probably talking about divorce when he mentioned having financial trouble. I mean, that would make sense. The divorce was already in the works before the picture. There's literally no chance whatsoever that I inadvertently told his wife that he was cheating on her, right? I mean, come on, there's no way that happened. But guess what? That is exactly what happened. The woman at the game was not his wife. Apparently his wife knew the woman though, and knew that Richard had lied about where he was that night and who he was with. And an absolute storm of garbage of epic proportions quickly followed after that. I ended up emailing her not long after and being like, hello? I've been hearing some things and I can't help but think that picture I sent might have been a part of this. And she said that she'd been meaning to contact me and she actually thanked me. She said she wanted out of the marriage anyways, and she said she might need me as a witness. But I didn't know what for. I mean, are divorces like a trial or something like that? But anyways, she paid me the $1,000 he owed me, plus another $500 on top of that. I don't know if she thought he still owed me $1,500, or if she did that on purpose to try and give me some extra. And thankfully, I didn't have to be a witness for anything, which honestly was good. Also, you remember how Richard has a nice car and a nice house and all that? Well, his wife was the one with the money, meaning that he no longer has it. They got divorced and he moved away, and I have no idea what became of him. Honestly, considering everything that happened, I feel kinda bad for him. But then I remember there's no reason he couldn't have just paid me. Seriously, why not just pay me? He had the money, but I honestly chalk it up to Richard having a lot of negative karma coming his way, and I just so happened to play a part in catching him in it. Wow, that's honestly insane. You were just trying to get your money. You literally were not trying to break up this marriage. So when you saw him at the game and you sent that picture, you were literally just trying to get back at this guy. And honestly, I don't blame you. He owed you over $1,000. I don't know about you, but working for free and not having your paycheck come in really does suck. It basically makes what you're doing a complete waste of time. So good for you for standing up for yourself and in a way basically tearing this guy down. This guy absolutely had it coming. He was clearly never gonna pay you, and you are 100% right. His bad karma was coming his way one way or another, but it's really cool to see that you were the one to help tip the scales. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I served my husband divorce papers after he posted a reel on Instagram making fun of my weight. And now I'm not sure if I went too far or if I overreacted. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So for a bit of context, it's been over a month since this happened. I'm a 32-year-old female and my husband is 30 years old, and we've been married for 3 years now, together for 5. Our marriage isn't perfect, but we make it work. We both were fairly in shape when we first got together, but I gained a lot of weight when we had our kid and haven't since then. We are also all Indians, and it's somewhat acceptable to pull each other's legs. Mostly family does it, and there isn't really any malicious intent. So my husband routinely teases me about my weight gain, but I know that he loves me, and I try not to take it personally, because even I tease him about how long he takes in the shower and how obsessed he is with styling himself in front of the mirror, innocent stuff like that. Well, my husband has quite the following on Instagram and usually posts a lot of reels, and it's usually harmless and it's just fun stuff. I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw a reel about me, how much he loves me and all that, and I thought that it was sweet, but immediately after that, I saw another one, and this one was also about me. It was a 5 years ago versus now picture of the both of us with a background voiceover. It said the following: before wedding, my responsibility was 55 kilos. Now it is 75 kilos and it keeps on increasing. This was then followed up by a cackling sound. Now, I don't know what happened, but when I saw this, a switch flipped inside of me. I felt humiliated and ashamed of myself in a way I had never felt before. I felt anger and hurt at my husband for something that was normal ribbing for the both of us. My husband was away on a work trip, so I didn't contact him. I went through some other online forums to try and find advice on similar situations, and most people advise serving divorce papers, and it made me wonder, should I do something like that? Well, cut to the present, and yes, I left divorce papers on his nightstand and went to my friend's house, and that was 2 days ago. The entire family, including him and my parents, have been hurling insults at me for bringing shame to their family. They told me there's no concept of divorce in our culture, and I should just keep my mouth shut of all this feminist garbage, as they put it, and come home to tend to my family, because as a wife and a mother, that's what I'm supposed to do. They also said that nobody will marry me because I am trying to be a divorcee, and this is true in my culture. My husband said that he didn't think I'd snap at him like that, and thought that this warrants a conversation if it really did hurt so badly. I think I may have gone too far, and I may be at risk of being disowned by my family. Should I just accept this compromise? Was I being too dramatic? What should I do? Honestly, from the way you've made this sound, it really does seem like we went from being insulted on the internet all the way to saying, hey, let's get a divorce. Like, I don't know about you, but this seems like such an extreme step. Sure, what he did was incredibly rude. This was seriously hurtful and it really hurt your feelings. He made fun of your weight online and he shared it with everybody that he knows. That's not fair, you didn't consent to that, and I don't blame you for being upset. But instead of talking to him ahead of time and being like, hey, I want you to take that down, that really hurt my feelings and I don't like that, or some kind of conversation like that, you instead took the advice of the internet and said, okay, divorce is the next step. Not counseling, not talking through it, not having some kind of intervention, not even expressing your feelings about how that made you feel. Nothing like that. Nope, it's time to get a divorce. In my opinion, I think this is going way too fast. Yes, he does need to apologize. And yes, it seems like some boundaries need to be made between the two of you. You really can say, hey, I don't want to be made fun of anymore and I want this to stop. Stop making fun of my weight and all that stuff. And have some kind of conversation and try and work on everything between the two of you instead of dropping everything in front of you and saying, yep, I'm getting divorced. I don't know, maybe there's other things going on that the original poster is not sharing in this regard, but it really seems from my perspective that this is going way too fast. And sure, I completely recognize that maybe there's some cultural differences here that I'm not getting. Like, clearly there is something I might be missing in this regard, so if you do know more about this culture and you have better insight on what's actually happening here, I would love to hear what you have to say. Please leave a comment down below, because if there is some kind of clarification here, I would love to hear about it. So hopefully something can change here, because yes, he did hurt your feelings, but in my opinion, I don't think you should suddenly jump to divorce just because he did something that embarrassed you online. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not wanting to pay my sister's mortgage, despite the fact that we do have the money after I won the lottery? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I did not pay for my sister's mortgage, despite paying my parents' mortgage off and financially helping my friend. For some context, I make a lot more money than my sister, and I already pay for her kids' schooling, extracurriculars, and have a college fund for each of them. I also won the lottery recently. My husband and I keep our money private, including the lottery. After my parents' house got destroyed by a hurricane, I paid for a new one for them because they didn't have the funds. Also, my friend got money stolen from her, but she had no evidence. I helped her get back on her feet and paid for her rent for nearly 2 years. Now, my sister and I have never been friends, as I have always been more nerdy and into school, while she was more into athletics and in the arts. She would always bully me as I was the favorite child. Once, she even left me at a park overnight because, according to her, she didn't love me and she hoped I would get taken away. It was a miracle that I didn't. Of course, my parents dealt with her harshly, which made her hate me even more. One night, my husband and I were out with friends drinking, and I got drunk and accidentally said something about our money, and my friend told my entire family. My parents said nothing, but my sister started going out of her way to do nice things. I paid for a vacation for my parents, my husband's parents, myself, my husband, and our kids, while also including my sister and her husband, as well as her husband's parents. It was short, but it was a nice get-together. So I really do nice things for my family overall. One day, my sister calls me asking if I could pay off her mortgage and pay for a vacation for her and her family to 4 different places over the summer, totaling to around $100,000 or more. But I told her that I couldn't do it as it was a lot of money. She then screamed at me saying she knows I have the funds. Now, although I do, I am saving my money for retirement and emergencies that might come up, and I don't want to spend it recklessly. I am already paying for all of her kids' schooling. She tells me she has always loved me and been so kind, but I reminded her of several events in our childhood which she absolutely denies, such as leaving me at the park overnight and hoping I get taken away, or breaking my arm on purpose, or using her height and athletic ability just to hurt me. She has complained to my parents, and a lot of extended family members are taking her side. Now, my extended family knows I have money and have started being really kind and sometimes asking me for things, and it honestly feels like everybody is now a vulture except for my parents, thank God. Some of my relatives won't even talk to me now that I've refused money, but they all started in the same way. They say stuff like, "How's your family? How are you? How's the kids? How's your husband in life? Are you doing all right?" And then after about a 3-minute conversation, they start asking for money. One specific case on my husband's side was so bad. He has an uncle who came to me begging for money, claiming that he was out of it. I told him I couldn't give him anything, as it was in trust and retirement funds that I couldn't access. I got to the point where he broke all of my plates from my deceased grandmother, and I was very angry, but I tried to stay calm and collected. Eventually, though, he did storm out. My husband then told me that he did have money. In fact, he had a little over $200,000 left for his retirement. He broke my plates from my grandmother, who I was incredibly close with, and he did it all for nothing. And I honestly was crying for half the night about that. Now, remember, once the cat is out of the bag, I'll never get it back in. I really hope somebody else gets a ton of money so I won't be badgered anymore. Now, so far, I haven't paid for anything besides that vacation, as well as my parents' mortgage and financially helping out my friend and for my sister's children. But I am not paying for anything else, especially not my sister. Maybe I should even stop paying for her children's schooling and activities and take out the college funds for her children and just save that money for me and my children. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? First and foremost, I don't think you're the jerk in this situation. Your immediate family and your extended family, minus your parents, who are thankfully cool about this, they are all acting like complete morons. They are only coming out of the woodwork so they can try and squeeze some money out of you and your husband. And that's not fair in the slightest, because you have it right. Once the cat is out of the bag for this type of stuff, it's never going back in. People will always be coming after you. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be the case for a long time. And it really sucks that you had a moment of weakness and you were drunk and you talked about all the money that you had, because that honestly was the biggest mistake you could have made. Because that kind of rumor is going to spread like wildfire. You will never be able to put that toothpaste back in the tube. Now, when it comes to paying for your sister's mortgage and her children's stuff, I think personally, if I was in your shoes, I would personally keep the commitments that I had already agreed to, just to avoid any potential legal drama that might happen. I mean, it sounds like you're kind of loaded. It sounds like you have a lot of money at your disposal, and the last thing you need is some kind of lawsuit, all because you pull out the college fund or something like that. Remember, people can sue you for whatever they want, even if it's some kind of illegitimate reason. But I think with that in mind, I would personally refuse to pay for anything else moving forward. I think the excuse you use with your uncle, whether it was legitimate or not, of saying that all the money is in retirement funds or in trust funds, might be a good way to stay out of this conversation and protect your financial assets. Because remember, this is your money after all. You have it, it's yours, it's under your name, and you really are not obligated to have to pay for anything. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you have to fork it over at the drop of a hat. That, in my opinion, is really weird and honestly really ridiculous, and hopefully for the sake of you and your kids, things get a lot better relatively soon. Am I the jerk for telling my son's pregnant girlfriend that if she keeps disrespecting me, then she will not be living in my house? Here's what happened. So I have a son who got his high school girlfriend pregnant. It was obviously an unplanned pregnancy, and it resulted in my son's girlfriend getting kicked out of her house by her mom. Now, I never liked this girl, but I obviously couldn't let her stay on the streets now that she's carrying my grandchild. So I let her live in our house. Now, both she and my son gave up on college for the near future, together, and my son is now working a full-time job so he can provide for them in the future. The problem is that his girlfriend refuses to do anything, but will absolutely all day just lock herself in my son's room, eating snacks and watching videos on my son's computer. I need to drag her out to just help me with cooking and to clean up at least the room she's staying in. But she's always complaining about how I'm working her like a dog, even though she's already in constant pain because of her pregnancy. And then she'll come crying to my son about my treatment of her. Mind you, she doesn't have a high-risk pregnancy. And I know this because my husband and I are the ones fully paying for her medical controls. And I don't put her up to doing tasks like cleaning the toilet or anything similar. But she really did cross the line. After I got dressed up, she asked me where I was going. And when I told her that I'm getting ready for church, her exact response was to say, "I didn't know that there were churches that allowed people in that looked like a lady of the night." At that point, I absolutely had it with her. And I told her straight up that I don't care who she is. I won't allow her to disrespect me while living in my house. And if she can't keep her attitude in check, then she can get out of my house. She pretty much started crying at that point and immediately called my son, who later on also gave me an attitude for treating his girlfriend like garbage when apparently I don't know what she's going through. My husband also thinks that while she was definitely out of line with that, she was probably only acting out because of pregnancy hormones, and that I could have handled the situation better without straight up threatening to leave her homeless. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. She needs to start being more agreeable around the house. She can't just stay in that room all day and do nothing. That is seriously not okay. She has to earn her keep just like everybody else, and she has to be respectful of the house she's staying in. So her talking to you like that is completely inappropriate. And look, I get the situation. You not only don't like her, but you never expected her living with you after your son got her pregnant. The situation sucks, and I'm really sorry you're going through it. But if she wants to expect to have any kind of home in your house, then in my opinion, she needs to start learning respect and earning her keep around the house. Otherwise, in my opinion, there's definitely going to be problems. I was scammed by a former friend and business colleague out of thousands of dollars for a fraudulent software for my business. And after I demanded a refund, he skated around the issue all the way up until practically denying me my money back. So I decided to get revenge. And as a result, I slowly started dismantling the lives of the people who scammed me out of my money. And I've never been happier to see them get put away behind bars. Here's what happened. I first want to start off by saying that all names in this story are fake. So this happened about 9 years ago. I have an extremely beautiful niece by the name of Emma on my husband's side. She is a head turner. She's very approachable, humble, and very smart. She is also very shy and has trouble asserting herself and enforcing boundaries. Now, I used to know a guy by the name of Dean from my first marketing job. We worked in the same building. Most youngsters knew each other and grouped for lunch at the lobby cafe. He was a very cool guy. He was super funny, amendable, and likable. He was clear in his goal of becoming a business owner. Eventually, our small group kind of disbanded, and I moved on, slowly losing touch with my clique. Fast forward, and now I'm married and actively looking to expand our business. But who should I bump into while at a dentist appointment was Dean himself. We exchanged updates while in the waiting room. He now owned a small business services company. I looked into his website and decided to give his services a try. He became our regular supplier, and our working relationship brought him lots of referrals. So basically, we indirectly helped him build his business. So I had my niece Emma apply for a job at his company as he was actively looking for new workers. She was hired as an employee who would do a little bit of everything. The pay wasn't great, but she was only one course short of graduating and wanted to build her resume. For about a year, our work routine involved paying him good, steady money for extremely professionally done services. Stuff like payroll, accounting, expo representation, etc. Well, Dean eventually introduced us to Charlie. He had been complaining that his business was getting slower and slower, and Charlie was some sort of consultant to try and fix that. I use the term sort of because his actual scope wasn't clear. Charlie seemed like an okay guy. He was very formal and polite, with just the right balance between seriousness and smiles. We were invited to a business meeting so that Dean could discuss some stuff and hear out our input. This wasn't rare. Dean and I had been avid brainstorming partners, and our sessions helped each other back when we first met. And we had periodical discussions after we reconnected. But little did I know that all of this would fall apart so quickly, as some awful things were clearly brewing under the surface. Now, I wouldn't discuss my business with him for ethical reasons, but I didn't mind hearing him out and perhaps offering my opinion. Charlie and Dean presented a business opportunity, but my husband and I passed. At the end of dinner, everyone pitched in, but the tab was about $90 short. Charlie apologized for not having money on him and directly asked my husband to cover him. So we covered his portion because we felt we were put on the spot. I made up my mind that if the guy didn't pay us back, I would have Dean reimburse the expense. My husband and I left the restaurant and discussed the dinner surprise. We decided to drop it to avoid getting paranoid. We didn't really know this guy and Dean didn't seem bothered at all. Charlie paid us immediately, like at about 10 o'clock the next morning. He was contrite and very apologetic. Charlie eventually became a fixture at Dean's office, and eventually Dean had a change in behavior. He seemed hungry and thirsty for fast money schemes and quick success. They would spend the day in meetings, talking mostly about every multi-level marketing scheme in the book. With Dean constantly out of his office, the quality of services dropped significantly. We had to chase him to deliver things on time, we needed to stress the importance of timelines, etc. Dean's office became sort of a meeting place for the corner cutters, the alpha male wannabes who are really hungry for success and they want to rub that success in everybody's face and call anyone who can't do what they do as incompetent. They were those kind of guys. Our frequent dinner meetings thinned out and Charlie's true character began to surface. He would make awful jokes about women, he would make ethnic jokes, talking down to people, raising his voice. He even took a sip out of my niece's soda and she was absolutely disgusted, so she just gave it to him and got a new one. My niece eventually became Dean's formal assistant, so she had to attend every meeting, sometimes until very late hours. I began to wonder if she was getting paid for the extra hours, but I could be wrong and I didn't want to interfere. We declined every invitation if we knew that Charlie would be there. We signed up for only 3 yearly services and canceled on other services where customer service had declined, and it worked out. Then we paid Dean $10,000 for installing our new platform with full control over our own use of technology. But 3 weeks passed by and we still couldn't use the platform. It didn't support multiple users as needed, and we required someone from Dean's company to visit on a daily basis because we couldn't get it running. So eventually we simply asked for our money back. Dean agreed and paid us $2,000 and promised the other $8,000 in installments. I asked for a personal meeting because I needed the whole thing solved. We had paid our money and no service was rendered, and now we had to wait just to get a full refund? Like, really? By then, Charlie had taken full control and was now running the show. Crucial employees randomly got fired, Charlie began yelling at everyone, and made decisions with Dean never saying a word. And overall, my niece looked incredibly unhappy. Dean had her carry his suitcase and had her constantly serve Charlie some coffee. I did not appreciate the crude jokes that he directed towards her either. Dean did nothing, but I stood up for her. Charlie didn't like being challenged, so the atmosphere got very tense. Honestly, too many things just didn't add up. Charlie tried to paint himself as quite the 007 type of person. He was a former college professor, a former business owner, and a former marketing director. He spent months away from home and dramatically described one fateful New Year's Eve that he spent alone on a plane because he was extremely necessary for the company, so he became somewhat of a workaholic. And this was all the final straw that caused the end of his marriage. He was a fast talker, good with numbers, and knowledgeable. He claimed long motorcycle rides in exotic places such as Italy, but yet he had no car, was living at a friend's house, and showed limited proficiency. I pressed for my money and Charlie went ballistic. He tried to put me in a corner and tried to intimidate me. He asked, "Are you a software expert? Are you? Because if you were, you wouldn't need our services. Answer my question or shut up and stop talking because you don't know what you're doing." I answered that I wasn't an expert and he just replied, "Then shut your stupid mouth." I got up and told him I'm no expert, but I'm a paying client, and I warned him to watch his mouth and that he would not get a second warning. My relationship with Dean was strained. He did not stand up for me, not as a friend, but as a client. I told Dean I would never again deal with Charlie on no uncertain terms. I canceled all accounting and payroll services immediately. I had zero trust. I then researched Charlie's background. None of his corporate experiences checked out. He had an extensive criminal record with gender violence, bank and wire fraud, securities fraud, patrimonial crimes, and a pending arrest warrant dated 8 years prior. I forwarded all of this to Dean and he never replied. I urged my niece to leave her job, but she decided to end her semester and then get another job. But this was an awful idea. She said that Dean owed her overtime and leaving her job would almost guarantee she would never see that money. Dean eventually contacted me with a solution. He gave me some unconvincing apology and asked me to meet him him and an excellent software company owner who could help out our situation. I insisted on getting my refund, but he promised he would cover the expense. I then addressed Charlie's criminal records, and he said he didn't know, but had confronted Charlie and had cut ties with him for good, which was a complete lie. Charlie claimed all had been solved and he was now on probation. So fast forward and I meet the lady that's supposed to help us out. Her name was Frances and she was hostile. She was standoffish and had a distinct superiority complex. She owned a yacht, multiple real estates, and had a presence across several states. I left when the meeting was over without an actual resolution. She hardly mentioned anything about software. Frances talked a big game on other topics. I researched her as well and found lots of questionable information. I asked Dean directly if she was in any way connected to Charlie. He offered a vague answer of saying, "I don't know, it could be." But when I pressed for a yes or no answer, he said, "I can't compromise the integrity of my success by indulging in your unfounded assumptions." His business was drying up. He saw Frances as his savior. She engaged him to help her set up one of her big companies and would pay him $750,000 in total. She would also pay him $2,000 a week for 6 months just to do some company creation work. I had a software engineer to install our new system. Our initial intention was to get Dean's software up and running to avoid the additional cost of new installation. The engineer informed me that the software could not possibly run because it was a knockoff from an outdated system. He advised me to file a complaint for fraud. Now, I didn't want to get my niece involved, I just wanted her to get out of that place. By then, Dean was actively trying to insert himself in clients' business. He made stupid decisions based on getting an undetermined percentage of what we achieve, but companies shied away from him and his snake oil tactics. Some more research led me to the conclusion that Dean had inflated his company's capacity for specialty software, so he also inflated the price, took $2,000 for himself, and gave Charlie $8,000 to get whatever garbage they could sell me. This is exactly why I could not get my $8,000 back. Frances was the source of the software. I notified Dean that due to the nature of his relationship with a felon, we were canceling all remaining services. My niece got fired that afternoon, and Dean's excuse was her refusal to give Charlie a ride. Emma came to me and my husband. She was scared and very emotional. She explained that when I gave Dean my canceling notice, she was in the car and was about to get off and enter the office. Dean slammed the door so hard the car shook. She was so perplexed. It took her a few seconds to get out. So Dean opened the door and yelled, "Get out, move." The situation with Charlie was also escalating. Now, Emma addressed this at work, but Dean's response was to say, "Grow up, toughen up. How do you expect to make it in this cutthroat world if you're gonna be so sensitive?" Charlie's jokes eventually became more overtly explicit, if you know what I mean. There was one incident months earlier where Charlie was drunk after yet another failed business meeting, and Dean ordered Emma to drive Charlie home. Well, on the drive home, he tried to come at Emma in a way that was incredibly inappropriate during the ride, and I think you understand in the way that I'm referring to here. He claimed he couldn't remember, and therefore it never happened. So this time, she refused to be Charlie's driver, as well as a victim of Charlie and his awful behavior and demeanor. Dean then fired her after ranting about how Charlie was being targeted by losers and faithless know-it-alls. He got into a power trip and became verbally aggressive, calling her a Miss Goody Two-Shoes and reminding her that she had been able to eat the whole time she worked for him because he paid her out of pity. He emailed her that due to her insubordination, as well as her lack of honesty and malicious manipulation, her duties were terminated effective immediately. But my husband and I supported her. We paid a good lawyer because this was no longer just about money. I went straight to the restaurant where Dean and Charlie routinely held their meetings. I confronted Dean in front of his clients and warned Charlie that his luck had just ended. The next time I would see him, he was absolutely going to pay. I became very attentive to detail. I researched all types of records and found that not only has Charlie jumped probation, but the arrest warrant was still in effect. The legal system had failed miserably at finding him. He had felonies in multiple states, and supposed time doing business overseas was actually jail time. Emma proved her case in court, and Dean had to pay $15,000 in owed salary and punitive damages, and had to pay some fines. I contacted as many of his former fired employees as possible via Facebook and encouraged them to sue him as well. And you know what? 3 of them actually did, with one of them winning. I wanted him under legal and financial strain. He was ordered to refund my money plus legal costs. And the judge didn't accept his excuse that it's Charlie's fault. My contract was direct with Dean, not Charlie. He also had to pay for breach of confidentiality because Charlie wasn't his employee, nor a legally bound business partner. The court opened a new investigation over potential financial fraud, as well as identity theft and information theft, as Dean had access to clients' accounting and payroll information, with lots of data at his fingertips. A new order of apprehension was issued against Charlie, but he ran away. The judge ordered Dean's business to permanently close, and a forfeiture notice was issued. Now fast forward, and I saw on his Facebook business page an announcement that Dean had been invited as a guest lecturer in a nearby college. Funny, because Dean never actually finished college, and I knew this from the beginning. I contacted them and voiced my concern over an unqualified professor teaching at their institution. I leaked his lack of academic standing by trolling their propaganda. They ended up announcing a different professor for the course without further explanation. During that fall, a former coworker called my niece to give her the news that Francis had been arrested by the feds for a fraud scheme. Now, this wasn't related to my revenge, but it was still sweet to see. The best part is that she stopped paying the $2,000 a week early on, but kept stringing him along for free work. I sent a formal notice to all the companies I had referred him to and explained that I could no longer recommend his services. And I added a copy of our own lawsuit. Companies were dropping like flies. Other lawsuits strung along for dishonest services. This set a chain of events that led to his downfall. He had some car repo situations back when the business began to fail. I called the company and told them where to find him and at what time. And that was easy, because although by now he had closed shop, he and Charlie kept eating at the same restaurant like a bunch of idiots. I wasn't there to see it, but confirmed the car was towed away. His marriage broke apart, he faced charges for selling and profiting from illegal software, and he got probation. He lost his home and illegally occupied a portion of the abandoned commercial building right next to his former location. So I leaked this information into an anti-gentrification regional Facebook group. The zone was under scrutiny because residents were being pushed away. He was using the spot as a small office and living quarters, but the residents wanted it as a community center, so they held a protest right in front. The police came, he was charged with trespassing and stealing electricity from a nearby building, and so he basically kissed his probation goodbye. Now, when it comes to Charlie, he was harder to nail down. He literally disappeared for years. I could not find him. But again, he later gained confidence. His social media became moderately active. He claimed to own some bogus business, and he never appeared in any of his picture posts. I pondered whether he was posting from inside of jail or something like that. I went to his aunt's profile, and she posted constantly. Some pictures showed him doing family gathering stuff, and I eventually found out via her comments that he now had a younger child and his legs were amputated from too much drinking, as well as having poor control over his blood sugar. He was the same bad person, and he was still a complete liar. There was even a picture caption that said, "Happy birthday, dear son, even though cold-hearted people are keeping us apart." I then found out he had an unpaid child support case, so I anonymously contacted both the baby mama and the child support division. I gave them everything, his aunt's address and every place I knew he visited. Eventually, he was arrested and new charges were filed, including battery and financial abuse of a mentally ill adult. I only recovered $3,000 out of the $8,000 that he took. My case against him lasted almost 2 years, but seeing him all pale and listening to his trembling voice during the court hearings was more than enough to get my revenge. The case took a toll on his already weakened health. His hands trembled. He cried and got ill when he was sentenced. He just kind of dropped his head and became super pale. Then he motioned his head to each side and shivered as he got help from the medics. I remember the judge's opening sentence was to say that they were tired of this case. They continued, "In over 10 years, I've read your name in multiple warrants, and yet you avoided responsibility, forcing us to spend taxpayer money on tracking you down. What is wrong with you? You plead and bring up your health problems, but none of that deterred you from stealing, treating people like garbage, and debilitating the integrity of those under your influence." When I heard that, I just smiled at his face as many times as I could, especially when the judge wasn't looking. He eventually served 4 years out of a 36-year sentence and passed away in 2019. But with all things considered, I'm so glad I was finally able to get my revenge. This is an awful situation. Charlie and Dean are unbelievably corrupt. There's no other way to put it. They literally scammed you out of thousands of dollars, and you weren't even able to get all that money back. Like seriously, that is so messed up. I feel so bad for Emma. I feel so bad for you and your family. It's just unfair that you had to deal with this in the first place. But boy, did you get some revenge. Like seriously, you absolutely threw the hammer down on these people. They didn't even have a chance to recover. Their dishonesty and all the things they did was just so unacceptable. Like you think you know somebody like Dean from college, and you probably thought to yourself, okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe I can have some kind of professional relationship with this guy, and we can both make money in the process. I mean, the original poster even did that. They would share Dean and his business with all of their mutual friends and give him a good word so that he could spread his business and everybody would benefit. You would get the services for accounting and payroll, as well as all the software you thought was going to be legitimate for your business, and he would get all of your referrals in the process. And I mean, when it comes to business, like that's just good practice. You help your friends out when they help you out. So the fact that he would betray that trust and not try to find somebody more legitimate to try and get this going and be some kind of console to all of the business that was going on is honestly mind-blowing. Like, how did he not know that Charlie was some kind of con artist? Are you telling me that this guy really didn't do a background check? If I'm going to be running a business with so many clients and I have all these people that are going to be relying on my services just to make sure that my business is running properly, I'm going to make sure I have the right guy for the job. I'm going to look at references. I'm going to look at background checks. I want to make sure that, I don't have a felon working for me. Now look, don't get me wrong. Just because you made a mistake in your past doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to get a job. Like if somebody who was a felon was applying for this job and I was Dean in this situation, I wouldn't hesitate to hire them if all of their past mistakes and any obligations they had, whether having a felony or anything like that, was all resolved and taken care of. In that case, I think it's fine. But with someone like Charlie, who had an ongoing case for so many different things, there had to be at least some kind of red flag that popped up for Dean when trying to figure out if this guy was the real deal. And the situation involving Emma was awful. For the sake of the story and being able to share with all of you, there's aspects of this that I couldn't explicitly say, but I think it's really easy to infer and kind of assume the horrible things they were doing and saying to Emma. Like it's really bad and it's something she did not deserve to go through. So honestly, with all things considered, good for the original poster for getting this done. They took these people to the cleaners. They did everything they needed to get these people back for scamming them out of thousands of dollars. So seriously, good for you, because these guys absolutely had it coming. An entitled coworker is treating my friend like garbage, constantly ostracizing her and making her life a living nightmare. So I decide to get some revenge and expose her for sleeping around with management at her company. And as a result, her future wedding falls apart and she loses tens of thousands of dollars in the process. Here's what happened. Years ago, one of my best friends by the name of Kate is not her real name, was working for a business-to-business tech corporation on the West Coast. Kate had a coworker in the same department as her named Angela. Angela is also not her real name. Now, there are too many things for me to list that Angela did wrong, but here's just a few notable examples. For starters, Angela would show up without fail about 15 minutes late every shift. She had also been passed around between 3 departments due to not being a good fit in the other ones. She would spend her entire shift on social media on her phone and would regularly give people incorrect information on the phone. She was even seen painting her toenails at one point at work. One of Angela's duties was to reply to an email inbox from contractors looking to renew warranties on their products. One time, the inbox was full of 670 unread emails, and all of those were potential paying customers. She would also flirt with every single man who worked for the company, despite the fact that she had a boyfriend. Now, she was not very attractive, and many of these men would just straight up complain to HR. This also led to her making out with employees in the parking lot, and there has been multiple occasions of that. She would skip out on doing her work all week, causing her to need to stay behind and do some more work just so she could collect overtime. But then she would just continue to skip out on doing her work. Kate finally ratted her out on some of the sketchy things she was doing at work, if you know what I mean, which led to a very meeting between Angela and the HR director, with her supervisor by the name of Kim and the department VP. Now, Angela was not fired, but she was pressured to resign, but she declined to do so. It should be noted that this company is notorious among its employees for not firing people that they absolutely should. Their direct supervisor, Kim, was on to Angela's game though, and would watch her more closely over the months. But Angela vowed to have revenge and spent several weeks trying to figure out who it was. Angela was a large, tall woman who was physically intimidating and somehow intimidating intimidated one of their coworkers into revealing that Kate was the snitch. So that's when Angela decided to spend the next week making Kate's life a living nightmare. She was verbally bothering her and being overall nasty whenever she saw Kate, gossiping behind her back, etc. It reached a breaking point when Angela shoved Kate while passing her in the hallway one day. HR was notified, and once again, Angela somehow made it off scot-free. Now, knowing that Angela was somehow invincible to HR, many of Kate's coworkers began ostracizing Kate, fearing that Angela would target them as well. Nobody would corroborate Kate's reports of Angela starting rumors or even bothering her. Kate quickly went from loving her job to absolutely hating it, while also becoming very depressed during this time. And it was right about then that I vowed to get some revenge. Angela had won pretty handily, knowing that Kim had no teeth because HR wouldn't touch her. So Angela went back to not doing any of her work. She even got engaged and bragged to everyone at the office about how extravagant her destination wedding plans were. Kate's only positive working relationship at this point were with her supervisor Kim and a few of her coworkers who would still speak with her when Angela wasn't around. About a month later, Kate unexpectedly received a text from one of her coworkers that still talked to her. It was a screenshot of a text message conversation with a department VP. The VP had revealed that he had been sleeping with Angela, and this message had made its way around the gossip mill back to Kate. So Angela's invincibility towards HR suddenly made a lot more sense. I knew I was going to expose her to her fiancé, but I decided to wait on it. Angela would continually update the entire office on what she had done for her wedding plans the previous day, which was then relayed to me through Kate. So I waited until she had to spend as much money as possible, and during this time, I even acquired more evidence of her infidelity. The day of reckoning comes about 2 weeks before the big day, and on Friday after work, I make a throwaway Facebook account to send off all the proof I have of her cheating on her fiancé. He doesn't reply, but I can see that it was seen at 6:00 p.m. The wedding plans were canceled on Facebook that Sunday, and I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in their household that evening. Fast forward to Monday, and Angela rolls in about 15 minutes late and immediately demands to speak to HR. A four-way meeting takes place between Angela, Kim, the HR director, and the department VP. You know, the one that she's been sleeping with. 10 minutes go by, and Kim and the HR director both leave. 5 minutes later, and Angela leaves the office, followed shortly by the department VP, and they both return to their own workspaces. Angela begins working, and 15 minutes later, the department VP arrives with Kim and security. They tell Angela to pack her things and turn in her badge, and Angela is escorted out of the building. Angela protested to the VP, and the entire way out, he only says 2 words: "You're replaceable." Now, it was later found out that Angela had racked up tens of thousands of dollars in credit card debt just to pay for her wedding, and now that her engagement was off, she tried to use her affair with the department VP to blackmail her way into a pay raise. She had told them that she had received offers from other companies that would pay her much more, which was a complete lie too, by the way, and that she would leave if they didn't give her a significant raise, which was a complete bluff. When Kim and the HR director left the room, the department VP told Angela that if they got in writing that she would leave without a raise, he could then convince them to give her the raise. He also reassured her that she would take it back during her 2 weeks notice and maintain her position. So Angela took the bait, and the department VP immediately took this formal in-writing notice of resignation to HR and Kim. Rather than having her complete her 2 weeks notice, they decided that it wouldn't be necessary, so she could leave that very day. Now, from cheating on her fiance to sleeping with her boss's boss, all the way up to overplaying her hand and attempting to get a raise while being the worst employee in the department, as well as signing a resignation letter, all of this was Angela's own doing. And while I get the feeling like her house of cards would have fallen on its own eventually, it honestly feels good being the one to help push it down. Wow, that Angela lady sounds like a piece of work. Like seriously, you have to be really twisted to treat people that way. Not only is she a giant bully at work, but she was literally just sleeping around to try and be invincible in the department she was in. Like, that's not okay. That is so corrupt. I mean, what an awful and corrupt HR system, as well as leadership in this company. Like, that is seriously not okay. So good for the original poster for not only standing up for their friend, but also dismantling this corrupt lady's life. She absolutely had it coming with the way she was treating people around her. And the original poster is absolutely right. Their house of cards was gonna fall sooner or later. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to switch seats with a child on an 8-hour flight, even though I booked this seat specifically, and this was my second 8-hour flight just to make my way home? Here's what happened. So for starters and a bit of context, this was my second 8-hour flight on my way home from Africa via Dubai. I had booked an aisle seat so I could get up without bothering others, and a special meal due to health requirements. I boarded the plane, found my seat, and settled in. A family gets on with 3 kids. They don't speak much English, but they ask me if I could switch seats with one of their kids so they can all be together. The father of the family wasn't sat anywhere near the mother and the kids, so it looked to me like they left their seats to random assignment. I initially said yes, thinking it was just to move across the aisle, but then realized they wanted me to switch to sit in a middle seat, and that's when I said straight up, absolutely not. Another passenger then gets up and says he has a seat in the back that I can move to. Now, I have no idea how he has something like that, but I still said no. I said that I had booked my seat and I ordered a dietary meal, and there's no way I was moving to a middle seat. He then starts loudly criticizing me and saying he hopes I understand that I'm splitting a family up. This eventually attracts attention from the crew because it's literally holding up boarding. They got a passenger on the other end of the road to switch and sit somewhere else so their kids could sit together. The other passenger from before then starts loudly saying to his kids and the family, "Do you understand what happened? She thought her seat was too special, so she wouldn't let you sit together." I told the guy to mind his own business, and he responded that he wasn't talking to me. I was exhausted and sleep deprived by this point, and I told him to just stop talking about me and just can it. I didn't think I was in the wrong here. I organized myself beforehand and I booked my seat, and I felt it was quite unfair to have some random guy criticizing me to literally half the cabin for not wanting to swap to a middle seat for an 8-hour flight. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for refusing to switch seats with a kid on an 8-hour flight? No, you are not the jerk. You planned ahead, you wanted an aisle seat, and you have a very specific meal you have to eat. That is not you being selfish, that's you being responsible. The selfish thing is that this family didn't want to have assigned seats, but instead left it to chance. It could have been anybody sitting next to them, and they still would have tried to guilt trip them in the same way they tried to guilt trip you. And that's not fair for anybody. That seriously is so messed up. So if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. I would have sat there, folded my arms, and said, "Nope, you better find your seat because you're not taking mine for a second." Mind you, this is also your second 8-hour flight just to try and go home. There's no reason for you to give up something that you properly planned for. That's not you being selfish or heartless, and this father's lack of preparation is quite literally not your problem. Am I the jerk for telling an American guy that he should stop calling himself German if he's never lived there and can barely speak the language? Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm German, and I was traveling last weekend through Spain. I stayed at a hostel at a mixed room, and some of my roommates were American. At night, we were all mingling and talking about each other, and one of the American guys, upon hearing that I was German, told me, "Oh wow, a fellow German." At this point, I wasn't actually sure if he was an American, so I asked in German if he was German. He mumbled a bit and said, "I'm sorry, I'm German, but I actually don't speak the language, only a few sentences." But he kept bringing up about how being German shaped his life, how important German culture was, and how he apparently celebrates Oktoberfest every single year. I asked him why he would say he was German if he was actually American, and he said that it was because his great-grandfather was German and his grandmother was German-Irish. So I thought to myself, okay, whatever that means. I asked him if he knew where his great-grandfather was from, and surprisingly, he did. He was from Hamburg, Germany. But this was extra hilarious because then it makes no sense for the guy to celebrate Oktoberfest, as that's a Bavarian thing to do. I still didn't say anything, and we just kept talking. The guy kept making all these weird remarks about German culture and German food, like hot dogs and sauerkraut. Me and my friends were then planning to go look for a place to drink, and he asked to come along with us, just so the Germans could stick together. We had a few beers at the bar, and he once again brought up something about being German, and saying he was going to get the German flag tattooed in Germany. And by this point, I was already a bit tipsy, while also getting pretty annoyed. And I told him straight up, "Can you please stop saying that? You're not German, my friend. You're an American of German descent. You don't even know what German culture or food is like. You can't even speak the language. You're honestly just really annoying me." The guy looked pretty angry and annoyed, and kind of scoffed scoffed and tried to jokingly say, "You're right, I'd rather be an American. At least then I can say I didn't lose a world war." At that point, me and my friends were rolling our eyes so hard that we just moved to a different place. Later, some other guy not related to us told me that the guy was pretty annoyed and sad that I told him he wasn't German, because apparently that was a big part of his identity. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk in this situation. As a fellow American, this guy was being obnoxious, and you are 100% right. You can't call yourself a member of a different society if you not only don't speak their language, but also never live there and you don't know their culture. Just because you have ancestors who came from that area doesn't mean you can claim citizenship or any other kind of connection to that besides blood relatives. And it really sucks that this was such a huge part of his identity. And sure, he can be proud of his heritage and all that other stuff. He can have some kind of connection to it and really enjoy the culture and all that stuff, but he really can't go around and be like, "Yeah, I'm a German, this is like who I am," because brother, you are from America. You are the least German person walking around right now. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I don't think you did anything wrong, and you had every right to put this guy in his place. My entitled company tries to take away my time off by trying to pull a fast one on me and basically trick me out of it. So I decided to maliciously comply, putting them in a nasty spot and nearly quitting in the process. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I work as the sole IT guy in a firm of about 75 people that is part of a larger nationwide mother firm. Our local firm has an ongoing agreement with another local firm that we play backup for each other in case we need to help one another with backup or knowledge sharing or whatever. This has been the case since 2009, and I've worked for this firm since 2002, so I'm kind of an old hand at the game. We have this generous leave package that builds the longer we work here. The starter was 180 hours per year leave, and someone with 20 plus years has 240 hours, and that's the one that I have. Now, because we have this much leave, I'm of the mind to not be all that strict with the when and the how. I'm single and have no kids, so I'm happy to let others with the kids take priority to handle school holidays. As such, the last 15-something years, I have always taken the bulk of my leave in September and October, and the rest in Fridays all the way coming up to the new year. The only rules we have regarding when and how we take leave is that it can't be any more than 6 weeks together. You can't transfer more than 7 days to the next year, and your time off must be approved, which it always is. As per usual, I put in my time off request for September and October somewhere in May of that year, and as I was expecting, this gets approved. Around August, we get news from our hardware vendor that they will be installing our new server cluster in the end of September. Now, that's not really a cool thing to do, but hey, what are you gonna do? I talk it over with the big boss and agree to move my leave to February and March of the next year. And honestly, I don't mind that much. He is happy, I'm happy, and we just go ahead with the plan. Now, since I'm a one-man department, and corporations are gonna be corporations, I have a department head that oversees my department, along with a few others. Somewhere in the end of September, she walks into my office and asks me when I'm planning to take the bulk of my leave. I tell him about the server cluster install and that my leave has been moved to February and March. Now, you might be asking, if you're gonna be the department head or part of management, you have to at least be reasonable, right? Well, you're definitely wrong in this case. He tells me that since I won't be taking my leave in this year, it will then be automatically forfeit. I then tell him I have an agreement with the big boss, to which he states that he talked about it with the big boss and that the arrangement won't work since he didn't approve it. So then I get on the phone and I call the boss, and he states that yes, indeed, my leave will not be approved and it can't be moved to next year. And at this point, I was angry. Like, I was so furious, I was fuming. So I took a half day and went home and mulled things over. Now, with age comes wisdom, and I know not to take decisions when I am angry. The next day, I go in and ask a leave statement from our HR department that has a counter of all of our leave and, more importantly, all of our overtime. I had around 700 hours of overtime standing, and that was accrued over the years, and 220 hours of leave. So I put in 5 weeks leave and then 1 week of overtime, and I repeated this over and over again, all the way until I landed on the first week of January. Then I put in the remaining overtime and landed in the end of February. And next to that, I sent in my resignation as well as my 3 months notice, which I planned exactly on the last day of my leave. Not even a half an hour later, my big boss and the department head are at my desk asking me what's happening. So I told them that since the department head had told me that I couldn't transfer the leave, I would then just be taking it this this year, and since the agreement to move my leave was broken, I felt I didn't have another choice but to look for other work where agreements in fact would be honored. I then asked them what rule of the worker's manual regarding leave I had broken, if any, and if I did break a rule, could you please point it out? But they literally came up with nothing. Now, after that talk, I went home and the waiting game began. The big boss called me the next morning on my work cell phone, asking me to come in. I said to him, sorry, nope, I'm on leave, but I'm happy to make a pot of coffee if you want to drop by. So he does just that and drops by my place. Things eventually get brought up, and it seems like his department head wasn't entirely upfront with him, even though he wasn't entirely innocent either, and he wants to make things right. My 6 months leave stayed in place, and he offered to match the offers I would get from other firms just to keep me on board within reason. So fast forward, and while I do still work at the same firm, I have since received a 15% increase in my wage. I don't do overtime anymore, and my laptop doesn't come home with me either, and my work phone has to stay at work as well. I still do my job to the best of my abilities, but at the end of the day, if my hours are done, I go home. And even if the building was on fire, my clock out time would mean that I'm out the door. And now, as a result, my leave gets planned around my preferences as well, so I no longer have to shift around to meet other people's needs. Wow, talk about playing the biggest Uno reverse card. This guy had so much overtime and paid time off stored up over the years, he literally was about to take 6 months off of work just to spite these people for not letting him take his time off. Like seriously, these people are messed up. They didn't recognize his absolute seniority in this company, and they really should have been more respectful. And honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. So good for you for taking the initiative. These people were being weird, and in my opinion, they had no right to try and ruin your time off in the way that they tried to do. My boyfriend says that he will leave me if I go back to therapy, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So the title says it all. My boyfriend and I have been together for 3 months. In different places, he's shown immaturity, but I've mostly looked past it and kept telling myself that nobody's perfect. But yesterday, I walk into my bedroom and he puts his phone to his face and says, "She's coming, I gotta call you back." Now clearly he wasn't on the phone and he was playing a joke about talking to another woman, but in my opinion, it was extremely immature, and I told him that this could be considered emotionally neglectful. He goes on that he's a jokester and that in every other relationship, he's played jokes and it was normal. I tell him that a million other women would be okay with the jokes, but that doesn't mean that I have to be. He tells me fine, he'll be serious from now on and not make any more jokes. I respond by telling him I'm going back to therapy. His response to that was to say that the day you go back to therapy, let me know because our relationship will be over. I asked him what's the problem with therapy and if he's worried the therapist will help me realize how unhealthy things are about my relationship. He says that people who go to therapy come out worse and that a stranger shouldn't be giving their opinion on your life or telling you what to do. Now, I know that given the context, me saying that I'm going to therapy might sound like some kind of ultimatum or some kind of threat even, but honestly, I feel like I'm struggling with compromising or even just ignoring red flags, and the lines have become so blurred, I need someone to help me sort things out. Should such an ultimatum be a deal breaker? What should I do? Your boyfriend is awful. First and foremost, there is nothing wrong with going to therapy. That is a normal way to treat your mental health, and that does not make you a bad person. What he's afraid of is that, yeah, you're going to realize how awful of a boyfriend he actually is, and your eyes are going to be opened up by your therapist that your boyfriend might not be the best person for you. So it really sounds like he doesn't want you to figure that out. By the way, this guy is 34 years old, and he's acting like he's talking to another woman on the phone. He's doing that just to get under your skin, and that is so inappropriate. If he was a good partner, he would be very involved in this process, and he would be supportive of you going to therapy. So good for you for making that step, and I honestly feel like you can do a lot better than the boyfriend you currently have. Am I the jerk for slapping a little child after she tried to unalive my dog as revenge simply because I didn't get her the right doll for Christmas last year? Here's what happened. Also, this story came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. So I'm a 21-year-old female and I'm engaged to my fiance who's 25 years old. We live within a 70-mile radius of almost my entire family. I have a 2-year-old Australian Shepherd named Heather who is the light of my life and has essentially saved my life multiple times. She is 50% blind, but this has never been a problem. Last month, a family reunion was hosted at my house, which my almost sister-in-law attended along with her husband and 2 children. Her younger child, we'll call her Stacy, that's not her real name, is 9 years years old and extremely intelligent. Stacy is an A+ student and never does anything stupid or without reason. At the beginning of the event, Heather will leave my side and walk around sniffing everything before settling back down close to me after about 10 to 30 minutes. Almost an hour had passed since I had welcomed all my guests to this family reunion, and Heather was still absent. I wouldn't usually worry, but since there were many children present, I decided to look around. I was completely appalled by what I found. I was wandering into the basement and was about to leave when I heard a faint whimper. After a moment of tracking the sound, I opened an airtight plastic box to find Heather inside looking strangely tired, meaning that she had been in there for a while. I take Heather out and look around only to discover Stacy hiding under a table. I drag her out and I ask if she did this. She responds by giggling and saying, "Yes, I did." I hold back my tears and my anger. My best friend could have passed away. I asked if she knew the box was an airtight box, and she said, and I quote, "Duh, it wouldn't have been fun if it wasn't one." She starts to laugh, and now I realize she wanted to unalive my dog. So I slap her straight across the face, not very strongly of course, and she runs upstairs crying. And now half the family has blocked me on everything and refuses to realize that Stacy is messed up. It has since been revealed that Stacy had the full intention of taking my dog out, all because of last Christmas when I didn't give her the doll that she wanted. Yet most of my family still sides with her, as well as my almost sister-in-law's direct family. My fiance does, however, completely agree with me, as he understands Stacy's twisted intention and he absolutely loves Heather. So am I the jerk for slapping a 9-year-old for trying to take out my beloved dog? What should I do? Wow, that little monster is absolutely insane. That is so unacceptable, it's not even funny. This little brat tried to take out your dog all because you didn't get her the right doll for Christmas. Like, are you kidding me? Like, seriously, that is such a high escalation, that's not even funny. And I'm pretty sure that's like a sign of a possible psychopath or something like that. This little girl seriously wanted to hurt that dog. She put the dog in an airtight, like, plastic box, I'm assuming, and just left it there giggling like, "Oh yeah, this is what I want. It's not gonna be fun if she can't breathe." Like, what is happening right now? Mommy and daddy are clearly raising a psychopath, and this little girl seriously needs some help. It seems like everybody in this story is focusing on the fact that the original poster slapped the kid, but are still completely ignoring the fact that this little psychopath tried to take out this dog. If the original poster had not gone downstairs and gotten the dog out of that plastic bin, the dog probably would have passed away. That would have been horrific. Literally, how is everybody excusing that behavior and still deciding to take the side of this little brat? Like, what is their rationale? "Oh, don't slap my child. She was only trying to take out your dog." I know if that was my kid, I absolutely would ground them for the next 3 years and probably take them to a doctor to get them analyzed. Like, seriously, that is not okay. I mean, hopefully the soon-to-be sister-in-law doesn't have any other pets in their family, because chances are that little brat's gonna try and take one of them out if you do anything wrong to her. So you know what? You are absolutely not the jerk. I don't think what you did was that bad, considered how that kid treated your dog. And hopefully in the future you set up some serious boundaries with the family and blatantly tell them, "Hey, if you want to come over, don't bring over your psychopath kid because she might try to take my dog out." If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for chastising my wife for accidentally breaking my MacBook by sitting on it? Here's what happened. So my wife has a habit of plopping her butt down without ever taking a look of where she's sitting. I've asked her repeatedly to look before she sits because some of the things she sat in included puke, an ant pile, a puddle of water that accumulated on the surface of the floor, a spider, and that one was while we were hiking, and so much more. I've mostly learned to mitigate any direct effect this has on me by ensuring breakable things are not anywhere that people would potentially sit. I used to have a habit of setting all kinds of things on the couch next to me for immediate use, and I now have to put it all in a different place. I did this because she would constantly come up without looking while I'm playing a game or watching a show or something and just sit down, and then suddenly the TV is turned off or the volume is messed up. Or in the previous worst case scenario, she sat on one of the joysticks on my PS5 controller and she sat on it while I had the controller sitting next to me so I could watch a cutscene of a game. Lately, she's been borrowing my MacBook a lot, and I always put it back in my office when I'm not using it, just so I can keep it charged. It is a $3,000 MacBook from 2022, and it's one of the M1 models. She left it on the couch and went back, accidentally sitting on it and cracking the screen. I was was extremely furious, as not only is there now a financial burden here, but I'm also out a computer, and I really need that for some classes I'm taking. When I said to her, "Oh, come on, why can't you ever look where you're sitting, ever? Was sitting in vomit not enough motivation, or an anthill, or a spider?" When I said this, she got very defensive. I continued by saying that her lack of attention just cost us hundreds of dollars, and it put me in a bad place for my school program. She called me a jerk for talking down to her because I have asked her many times to look where she sits, and I've snapped before because she will just sit without looking and cause issues. For instance, she sat on an ottoman without looking and spilled a bunch of food over that I had sitting there next to me. This time though, it really pushed me over the edge. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here. For some context, both of these people are straight up adults. They have enough common sense to know where they're sitting, and it's not like you haven't brought this up to her before as some kind of potential issue. And now the worst case scenario has happened. She sat down on your MacBook, even though you've tried very hard to be as careful as possible with protecting your valuables, simply because she'll sit on them and ruin them. Like, if this doesn't sink in that yeah, she needs to look where she's sitting, then I honestly don't know what will. Thankfully, you can get the screen fixed, but still, that's such a pain in the neck. I would be frustrated too. I think I would get upset as well if after so many times I've said, listen, you need to look where you sit. You're causing all these problems. It's not personal, but you're literally breaking stuff. This is no longer just a cute thing happening. This is like hindering my life. Like, if I was in your shoes, that's exactly what I would be saying. And you know what? I don't think you're really overreacting here when you're getting frustrated that a $3,000 laptop screen is now busted. I think I would lose my mind. I don't know about you, but I don't have that kind of money laying around, even just hundreds of dollars at the drop of a hat, just to spend on trying to get a MacBook fixed right away for classes. Like, maybe at the beginning of the month when I get paid, but even then, like, come on, this is not okay. And it's really inconvenient for you. So I don't think you're the jerk. I think making up and maybe apologizing for snapping might be a good plan here, just to try and meet halfway, but still, I think the point stands. She needs to be careful where she sits down, because she just broke something really expensive, and that's not fair for you in the slightest. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links if you'd like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not babysitting right before going on a trip? Here's what happened. So first, I want to start off by saying that for various reasons, I've decided to start cutting off a few family members in my life, and my grandma is one of the people I started to cut ties with. Now, I went on a camping trip for a week, and I made it clear the week prior that I'd be busy packing. While I was packing, just a day before I would be leaving, I got a call from my grandmother asking me to babysit my brother. Now, normally I did this for her to make money, but lately, I've only been doing it if my dad asked me to, because he normally pays me on time and in full to do it, and he's one of the few people I haven't gone low contact with. And plus, I know he needs the help, but that day I couldn't, because I was literally leaving the next day. So when my grandmother called me asking me to babysit, not giving me any reason why at first, I told her no. She then proceeded to let me know that she had to take her mother, who is my great-grandmother, to a doctor's appointment, and asked once again if I could watch him. I once again turned her down because, for one, I was busy packing, and secondly, she never pays me on time when I do it, if at all. Also, I knew full well that she has multiple babysitters to ask instead of me, so I knew she wouldn't be without a sitter without me. I was later told that this appointment was for a medical issue that my great-grandmother was dealing with, which kind of got me thinking if I was the jerk or not, since I possibly made them late to an appointment to help my great-grandmother out. I honestly don't know if I'm the jerk or not, since I was busy and I'm not on the best terms with my grandma. But at the same time, I don't know if I was being selfish for not helping out when she asked to. What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all in this situation. It sounded like you had other commitments and you couldn't drop what you were doing right then and there just to help out your grandma with babysitting your brother. Forget all the money and all the other stuff that she's supposed to pay you, or the fact that she has other sitters. When it comes to responsibilities and other commitments, especially as an adult, you can just straight up say, no, I can't help you out, and that's the end of it. It doesn't mean you're selfish just because you can't help somebody out. It just means that you're busy and you have other things that take priority over whatever they're requesting of you right now. And it sounds like she had other sitters available. She really could have called other people and said, hey, can you help out instead? So I really wouldn't beat yourself up over this. You are not the jerk in this situation. They probably made their appointment even if they were late, and it's no big deal, because at the end of the day, you had prior commitments. And if they can't understand that, then honestly, that is their problem entirely. Am I the jerk for not opening the bathroom door for my brother's girlfriend, all while I was taking the shower? shower. Here's what happened. So I live with my parents as well as my brother and his girlfriend. We will call his girlfriend Paige. Paige is not her real name. Paige moved in with us about a year ago since her parents wanted her to pay rent. Now we have 2 bathrooms, one with a shower and one without. Since moving in, Paige has made it very clear that she doesn't like the smaller bathroom. She would rather wait until the person is done in the larger one as opposed to just using the smaller one, which is like whatever, I guess. I don't really have a preference, so I use the small one just to avoid drama. Anyways, a couple of days ago, I had just come home from a long run and I was gross and incredibly sweaty. As soon as I got into the house, I went into the large bathroom to go take a shower. Everything was fine until I hear a banging on the door. Mind you, I'm in the middle of a shower. I have no clothes on and I'm covered in soap. I ask the person banging what they want, and Paige answers by saying, "Let me in, I have to go pee." At this point, I'm shocked, and I ask her, is the other bathroom being used? But she just sighs and says to me, "Just let me in." I tell her no, and that she can either use the other bathroom or wait until I'm done. She then starts banging on the door and cursing me out, and this goes on for about 5 minutes. But I just tune her out and I continue my shower. When I was done, I just assumed she relented and used the other one, but instead, I was met with a warm, wet surprise when I stepped into the hallway. That's right, Paige had gone to the bathroom on the floor and didn't even clean it up. I am now angry. Not only did she completely bother me while I was in the shower, but now she left a disgusting mess that could have been avoided if she just used the other bathroom. I stormed to her and my brother's room, and we got into an argument. And the basic outline of it was that this wouldn't have happened if I had just opened the door. And this was my brother as well as Paige actually saying this. So I said, "Listen, you were invading my privacy and you left a big, gross mess." Paige ended up telling my parents everything except for going to the bathroom on the floor. They were apparently on my side to begin with, but when I told them that final detail, they were livid. They almost kicked her out right then and there, but after they calmed down a little bit, they told her that she would have to find somewhere else to shower because she was no longer allowed to use the big bathroom. Now my brother's not talking to me, and his girlfriend is telling everybody that I was a manipulative jerk who almost made her homeless. I don't think I was the jerk here, but maybe she was right. What should I do? You are not the jerk, and she is absolutely not right. I am so glad your parents saw exactly where you were coming from. She went to the bathroom on the floor, like straight up just on the carpet basically. And that's because you wouldn't let her into the bathroom while you were showering. That is straight up weird. Paige does not sound like a good person, and it kind of makes me believe that maybe she moved out for other reasons besides rent. Maybe her parents were tired of her pulling stuff like this on a daily basis. And while I'm glad that your parents are on your side, I am so disturbed that they did not kick her out right then and there. Like seriously, that is unacceptable. In no universe is it ever okay for somebody to do that in anyone's home. You go to the bathroom in the toilet. You don't go to the bathroom on the floor in protest, just as some kind of like weird revenge, just to get back at someone for not letting you in the bathroom. Like that is crazy to me. And if I was in the parent's shoes, I would have kicked her out and said, "Nope, you gotta go." So no, you're not the jerk. Your brother's an idiot. And if anything, he's probably horrified and embarrassed for the way his girlfriend acted. And if your girlfriend really wants to spread false rumors about you, just tell everybody the truth of what she did. And that instead of going to another bathroom to take care of her business, she decided to squat down and go to the bathroom on the floor like a dog, and then just sit back and watch people's reactions. Because I'm willing to bet they're gonna take your side pretty quickly. Am I the jerk for choosing to leave my son's wedding early, despite the fact that I told him ahead of time that I would be doing that? Here's what happened. My son Alan has just recently gotten married to his wife. I love them both very much. It's also relevant to mention that I really dislike parties and large gatherings. I'm not sociable at all, and I really dislike all of them. So I was kind of a downer when I heard that my son and his wife were getting married and that they were going to have a wedding with around 150 people. I told my son ahead of time that I would probably leave early and that me and the rest of our family would take 2 cars so that they could stay if they wanted to. And he looked like he didn't much mind it at the time. So at the wedding itself, after the ceremony, I basically told him that I was glad and it looked great, but I was going to go home. He asked if I was going to at least stay for the cake or for the food, but the food didn't really look all that appetizing to me. So I told him I was just gonna leave. He said, "All right, whatever, just go." And I went back to my table and I got my stuff. I told my wife and she said she didn't feel comfortable driving back alone as the venue was very far from us and the roads there were not great. I said in that case, she could come with me, and after some hemming and hawing, she agreed. So both of us left and we were on our way. Then 2 days later, my son's new wife bombarded me and my wife with messages messages that she was disgusted with us, saying horrible things about us, and insulting us as people and as parents. It was really just sickening. I told her off and asked her why she thought it was okay to talk to her in-laws like that, and she said that us leaving ruined the wedding for her son, and that he was upset for the rest of the night. She continued to berate us, but I politely told her to leave us alone, and then I called my son, mainly to inform him that his wife had a temper and he should know about it ahead of time. When we talked about it, he basically started berating me too, and said things like, "You always do this," as well as "just leave me alone," all before hanging up on me. I feel like I'm justified since I told him ahead of time that I wasn't gonna stay. But am I the jerk here? What should I do? Wow, you are definitely the jerk here. You left your son's wedding early. You didn't even feel the need to stick around and try and show some kind of support. You thought about your own comfort and what you wanted and decided, you know what, I'm gonna go home and just spend time at my house. Like seriously, how selfish can you possibly get? This is the one day where your son really needed you there, and instead, you decided to think about yourself and your own needs at once. You very easily could have sat in the corner and been on your phone. You could have at least had a presence there at that wedding, but you decided, okay, ceremony's over, gotta get home and make my own food. Like seriously, you sound like an awful parent. And you know what? Your son probably did see this coming, because from the sounds of it, it kind of seems like you've done this to your son throughout his entire life. Like, can't you see that this is seriously a problem? I mean, you didn't even stay for the meal that they paid for. Like, that is such a disgusting lack of love and respect for you as a parent. It's not even funny. And you also basically forced your wife to leave as well, even though your wife probably didn't want to leave. And now when you get confronted by his wife, who doesn't have a temper by the way, as she was literally just defending her husband, you have the audacity to try and flip the script and be like, wow, I'm the victim here. You're not the victim here. You're the assailant. What you did was very selfish, and you absolutely need to apologize. So in my opinion, yes, you are the jerk. That was so inappropriate, and you have burned a serious bridge in your son's life. My daughter stood up to her bully and put her in her place after this brat tried to mock my daughter and my son for being adopted. And now I'm not sure if my daughter's the jerk or if she might have taken things a little too far. Here's what happened. So, according to my daughter, this happened last week, but I just heard about it now. For context, I have 11-year-old twins, a boy who we will call Leo and a girl who we will call Libra. Both of their names are fake. They are adopted as I am single, and they look absolutely nothing like me. They are both blonde with gray eyes, and I have dark hair with brown eyes. Now, they know they are adopted, but they don't care. However, they are in middle school, and this is the age of the most discrimination, at least according to my own experience. Now, here is where the trouble starts. Libra looks like a very quiet kid, but she will fight to the end to defend her brother, who is shy and non-confrontational. They have a classmate who we will call Julia, and Julia is one of those classic wannabe popular middle school girls. You know the type. She thinks that she is the most important person in the world, and the one thing that she can't stand is being told that she's not. Unfortunately, they are on the same bus, and this is where our story takes place. Libra and Leo are sitting next to each other in the seat, and Julia is 2 rows behind them, nose in her phone. Suddenly, one of Julia's friends whispers something in her ear and then points to Leo. So Julia walks up to him and says, "Why are you sitting next to that dweeb? She wears nerd glasses and is ugly." And she's talking about Libra. Leo says hesitantly, cause she's my sister. Julia then literally replies the meanest comment I have ever heard. I swear my blood was boiling when Libra told me what she said. This little brat said, "No, she is not your sister. You are adopted. That means you don't have a family." This then brought about a shocked silence. "Your mom does not look the same as you, so you can't be related. You will never be as awesome as me because you don't have a real family." Libra responds to this with the most awesome insult I've ever heard in a while. "You know what, Julia? You remind me of a dandelion in a field of dandelions. You know why? Because a flower on its own is nice, but when it's put in a group of its own kind, it will stand out more than a single drop of water in the ocean. You say you are beautiful and amazing because you straighten your hair, you slather on makeup, and your pants are too short for you. That may be friends when you are friends with dweebs like me, but in a sea of made up and fake girls just like yourself, you are insignificant, barely noticeable. You pretend others are beneath your gaze while you yourself are immemorable. To me and my brother, you matter no more than a speck of dust." After that, there was a lot more silence, and this is where I think Libra might have taken it too far. She actually spit at Julia. Yep, a big glob of spit right on her shiny new Converse. Julia just started sobbing like crazy. She went back to her seat, where even her friends scooted away from her. After Libra told me this, I was simultaneously laughing and worried, because I really didn't think that she would go as far as spitting on Julia's shoes. She She also told me that she used dandelions as an example because they are toxic on the inside. But that begs the question, is my daughter a jerk for the way she talked to this bully? No, your daughter's not the jerk. She seriously said exactly what needed to be said. People like this who act like they're better than other people and put down others just because they're adopted, like first off, who cares? And secondly, that's just such a dumb insult in and of itself. These kids know they're adopted and they love their parents regardless. And the fact that this Julia kid would suddenly be like, yeah, you're adopted, you don't have a family. That is such a toxic thing to do, and I would not blame your daughter for doing that in the slightest. So no, she's not the jerk. She might get in trouble at school, but honestly, who cares? That little brat crossed the line, and she has no business talking to anybody in that way. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and also please subscribe to Am I the Genius? I think you're gonna love what they're making over there. It's a great channel, and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.